Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to discuss a whole another direction, courtesy of our brilliant Wani Spots. Why the Caribbeans want black nationalist societies in the United States? Why don't you have them over there? Well, this is not a xenophobic space. We're just being intellectual and analytical. And the fact of the matter is, could I open up a branch of uh, an American, black American idealistic uh, corporation in Jamaica? Short answer, no. We was we must always remember what Dr. John Henry Clark said. We have no friends, ladies and gentlemen. Look around, look in the mirror, look in the space. These are your friends, these are your family. NBA Youngboy put it real simple with when he begged the question where the love at.
I can't hear it.
Oh, it's not playing? Oh, well.
What is it? It's cracked up a lot.
Oh, well, it's NBA Youngboy. He said, where the love at? Where the love at? Is there any love anywhere? And he wrote that when he was a child. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to learn how to listen to our damn children. And children are going to tell you the truth, you know? But what do? Well, what the baby boomers did was demonize the fucking children. I'm going to be so glad when baby boomers are out of power in black America. NBA Youngboy was our latest prodigy trying to warn us on what's going to happen. And baby boomer media made him out to be some type of low life. Well, he was. It's from the projects. You know, he gonna have tattoos. Shit, I got tattooed. But you know, they portrayed him a certain way. But he was really saying deep stuff in his lesson, in his music. His music was lessons. He said, "Where the love at? Fresh up out the cell with a bag at." Right? He said, "I need." And what was the chorus? I need somewhere where there ain't no violence. Oh my God, that's enough to bring you to your knees. If you think about it. The children are saying we need somewhere where there ain't no violence. Subtext being there's violence all around us. Where's the leadership? Where the love at? Back to the topic. Why the Caribbeans want black nationalist societies in the United States? Wani, why do people come around us to start their shit? Can you explain that to me? I don't know everything.
I don't know either, but it's mind boggling that you would carry your behind out of a country with 99% black people, people of African descent, people like you, come to the United States of America that has predominantly white people in it and start talking about what you need over here. These people are obsessed. They can't be famous where they are. They can't write books where they are. They can't be entertainers where they are. They can't have countries where they are. They've got to crawl under us like an egg hatching out of our butts to do whatever they're doing here. And I don't get it. You just left a country with all your people in it that you control. And you want to come here and have this. How do you come up with that? Is what I want to know. How does that make sense? 54 African countries, several uh, Caribbean islands, and I keep hearing this from various cults in our group. We have a cult, and they start talking about this black, nationalist idea, and do it over there where it's already done.
Right. Well, here goes my thing, Wani. If if they were hanging on our muscle, because we've been through so much, and arguably we have such a diverse gene mixture that probability of genius and excellence and I don't want to use the word superiority. I don't want to use that. But we have an interesting dynamic going on where we have strength. Even me, some of the shit that I'm going through that I've been through, I don't know how the fuck I'm here. I mean, most people would have been dead if they went through. People look at my picture and get the wrong impression. They don't know I'm from fucking streets. I'm from Crip blood shootouts. I don't know how I'm here, but it's something about that foundational Black America. That gene mixture and the pressure. It's like a diamond. You know what I'm saying? The right carbon, the right conditions. Bam, here we are. We're hard. So people rely on our muscle to get where they need to go. I don't so much mind that, and some people get mad at me saying that. I don't. What I mind is 90 fucking 9% of the time when these people get to where they need to go, they turn on us and start waving a flag. You know what I'm saying? That ain't us. And they pretend like we're the problem. I see it in academia over and over and over and over and over again. You come to my black college, you come to my historically black college. I'm not gonna name it because I love it so well. The one that made me a real professor, certified me. Little bitty black college in Tennessee, tiny, that was created for little black slaves in the church who wanted to go to school. It was created for us, and you infiltrate us, and you use this school to go to medical school, and you go to medical school, then you turn on the black community. Like I don't, I, like NBA said, where the love at? Um, there are a few exceptions to people outside of the United States using our apparatus to get strong and then supporting the United States. One good example of diasporic person who came over here, went to our schools, and then never really turned his back was Kwame Nkrumah. Now, Kwame Nkrumah makes it. Um, he's one of the reasons why going to Ghana is a good thing. It's, he has a lot of exhibits there. Kwame went to, I think it was Lincoln University. He pledged Phi Beta Sigma. He got all wrapped up into black culture, and when he went back to Ghana, he never really turned his back on us. So there are a few examples here and there of people who didn't turn their back, but unfortunately, the standard and protocol that Wani let down is the norm. Unfortunately, of coming here, getting what they need to get, and then turning on the Black Americans. Right? I've seen African professors. Y'all know I lost a job. I lost my dream job because I stood up to an African professor who stood up in a full fucking faculty meeting with me there and said, "My Black American students are cannot pass my course. 85% of them failed my course." I said, if 25% of your students fail your course, that's on them. But if 85% of your students fail your course, you need to resign, sir, because you're an awful instructor. And he was politically connected, and within 2 months, I lost my job. I promise I'm not getting triggered, Wani, but it's relevant. It's relevant because that African professor is in the United States of America. He could have stayed in Nigeria, right, at his school, right. Anyway, carrying on. Why do let's lose the word Caribbean. Let's say diaspora members of the diaspora want nationalist societies in the United States. What's the benefit? Who wants to answer that?
Also, besides that, why do they need to come over here and get on the Congressional Black Caucus and be the leader of it, and then start babbling out of their dumb mouths about what they're going to do for hurricanes? We don't have anything to do with that. You have countries, okay? Use your UN seat to talk about hurricanes and what assistance you need from the global community. Why are you over here babbling from our political apparatuses? Why are you here? What kind of animal? Yeah, you're not humans anymore to me. You're an animal.
I was a very young professional student in Washington D.C. at Georgetown. I never finished Georgetown, but I went there for a little bit. It's too expensive. Um, I could afford tuition. It was just living in DC. It wasn't. I didn't think things through. I got an acceptance letter at Georgetown. I said I'm going no matter what. I watched too many movies. That's what they do in the movies, right? I got accepted. I'm gonna make it work. Shit, that lasted about a year and a half, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to live somewhere. Anyway, long story short, um, where was I? I was a young professional student studying law, and I got mentored by a couple of giants. One giant that mentored me was Marion Barry. Very humble guy, very nice guy. He was sad all the time. I never understood why he was sad, but now I'm a little bit older, I get it. But I went with Marion to the Congressional Black Caucus. This was in it was either 2006 or 7. Those years are kind of hazy for me. But I went and I sat down, and Sheila Jackson Lee, I'm not speaking ill of the dead, but I will say the truth, was there. I think she was one of the leaders of the Congressional Black Caucus. And Ray Nagin was a guest speaker. Ray Nagin, if y'all, those of you old enough to remember, was the mayor of New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. Light skinned guy. Well, Ray came to the National Black Caucus. I never forget this because he was so animated and so upset. He started crying up on the stage. Like that dude started crying like a baby. He was like, y'all, please help me. He said, I'm paraphrasing Ray, but what Ray basically said was during Hurricane Katrina, the white politicians surrounding New Orleans used that as an opportunity for a land grab. Um, he posited that when Katrina happened and these black neighborhoods, these wards got flooded, um, some of the aldermen or whatever they call them in New Orleans, Napoleonic law is different. I don't know what they call their leadership positions, but their politicians filed special paperwork to condemn the land, so nobody, basically the people couldn't go back on their land and get their own stuff. They couldn't go look for bodies. It was condemned and protected by like law enforcement and National Guard. And Ray said up under all that, the intention was to take the land back from the black people, and that's exactly what they did. Well, Ray was begging the Congressional Black Caucus to help him. He's asking lawyers and law students. He was like, please help us find some type of law, some type of motions to um, block them from doing this to us. And I witnessed them do absolutely nothing but talk. And I was real young and naive, and I was like, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? But I had been to New Orleans, I'm from Birmingham. Like we're real um Louisiana, Alabama are like similar cultures. In fact, I don't want to get into this long diatribe, but everything New Orleans has, it kind of borrowed. I'm being nice. It borrowed from Mobile, Alabama. And Mardi Gras and all that culture is from Mobile. So we kind of got an inside joke with New Orleans, like, you kind of stole our stuff. But anyway, I grew up going there. And I went after Katrina. It was the year after I left Georgetown. It was 2007. I went down there. I was going to transfer to Southern University School of Law. It didn't work out. I'm grateful it didn't work out, but Southern's in Baton Rouge. But I took a long car, I borrowed my mom's car and just drove all the way, took the long way to Baton Rouge through New Orleans. And I saw what Ray was talking about. Those neighborhoods have been taken over, and they were now lily white. If you go to New Orleans right now, you go to some of them wards, they have the cutest little lofts and bungalows with graffiti all over them. That didn't used to be there. Ray was trying to ask for help, which he never received from the Congressional Black Caucus. Why did he not receive that help? He didn't receive that help because of Wani's topic. You have members there cosplaying as FBA. They may have been mixed with FBA, like Sheila Jackson Lee, who had other agendas. Ladies and gentlemen, my Foundation of Black Americans, we have to make sure that we got to nip this in the bud. We have to keep these foreigners out of our business. I'm not xenophobic. I'm just being real. The fact that I love my own people does not make me xenophobic. And don't let anybody spread that narrative. If you love foundational Black Americans, you love your cousins, you love your brothers, you love your sisters, you're not xenophobic. That's what everybody else does. I've witnessed as a professor and as an educator, people come into this country and put their people before us. That's called common sense. I've witnessed it happen in the hood. How many times in the hood have you seen a gas station run by Middle Easterners and they wouldn't hire a black person? Who did they hire? Middle Easterners. It's common sense. Anyway, on that, I digress. What are your thoughts, Wani?
Well, when I saw this woman leading the Congressional Black Caucus, the first thing that I say when I see these people doing it is that they shouldn't accept that position. They should be the first persons to say, shouldn't a Black American be in front of this? That's the first thing they should say, but they don't have any kind of ethics. They're crooked, corrupt. disgusting individuals. All they want to do is be parasites and leeches. They can't even control themselves. There was one woman from Ivory Coast, I believe, and she was asked to be on the one of these reparation boards, and of course she said yes and jumped her butt on there, but she quickly said, "No, I'm going to resign." Now, probably because they ran up on her, but why not resign? Why not have some sense? Why do you have to keep doing things against our group when you don't have anything to do with that group? That's like if you had a reparations board to discuss Japanese people getting reparations for being interred, and you turn around and put a bunch of Cambodians on the panel. A Cambodian probably would say, "Well, what do I have to do with it?" And what I want to know is, what do Caribbeans have to do with Black Americans? The only thing they have in common is their stupid comment about the police think we're all the same, or America thinks we're all the same, but we're not the same. Okay, we have different agendas. I don't want more of you to come over here. You do. I don't want you to use my resources and take scholarships from my people. You do. We have nothing in common. Being brown is not going to cut it. It's really not.
Wanting, if
So,
if I may
or
engage in a little synchronicity, wanting, you said resources right when I was reading some scholarship from Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Anderson says, quote, a continuing flow of immigrants decade after decade from 1607 to present day. Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, this shit is not new. Shame on your history teachers. I'm a history teacher. I've been a history teacher from middle school to college. And what I see across the board with middle school with history teachers is, number one, they don't be looking like us. I think that's intentional. And number two, the ones that do look like us are scared to death to tell the truth. Not me. Um, Dr. Anderson said, came to believing that America abundant with freedom and wealth. Common sense dictates that they had anticipated what they would face in the kind of life most black people face. Immigration would have ceased immediately after the first boatload arrived. Anderson says, quote, the flow of immigrants never ceased because they were never treated like blacks. Stop right there. What needs to be addressed in this new dawning of in the age of Aquarius is black looking people from other countries have a certain type of privilege based on the fact that they're not black American. That needs to be addressed. They could look blacker than me, but have a Dominican Republic flag up and not get treated like me. Nobody really addressed that before, you know. I I live in Atlanta now, and I see that a lot. I see people who look like my cousins, you know what I'm saying? Like light skinned black people driving around with hats on to the side and, jerseys. And, I'm like, oh, okay, he a brother. And hanging from that mirror, Puerto Rico, baby. So I have to ask myself, why do you have Puerto Rico hanging from that mirror? Are you proud of being Puerto Rico? Or is that signification to the cops saying, hey, I'm not FBA, leave me alone? What are your thoughts on that, the black?
Man, Professor, that's exactly what I think it is. Uh, if you look back to the beginning of Prince Hall Freemasonry and the other Masonic groups that are black, most of them started in the Caribbean and came to America for a way to stop blacks, stop free Negroes on the mainland from getting into jobs and, know what I'm saying, getting into certain political spaces, and they became what we know as the Boule or the Buffer class today. So it's nothing new. They just doing what they was bred to do. Like the Caribbean is the the midpoint where they broke the slaves that was coming from Africa to come here to be, you know what I'm saying, interpreters and middlemen and traders. So I'll leave it at that for right now, sir.
That's very fascinating. Black, thank you, man. I appreciate your scholarship and you teach me stuff I didn't know. I heard it, but I didn't register it. You're right. It was a middle breaking point. But moreover, Hell, y'all gonna make me break out the heavy guns up in this bitch. I'm gonna have to break out some Dr. Jacob Carruthers. Jacob Carruthers said, with respect to the Haitian Revolution, is that during the 1804, the Haitians start coalescing and forming a movement from below, which is where it needs to come from the project, not from the colleges. They need to come from the projects. And with that movement, they destroyed the French, which was the Navy SEALs of their day. Napoleon had the strongest army in the history of mankind, and them uh, low, low SES black folk beat the shit out of them. Well, Jacob Carruthers posited that the British, which, if you look at history, I would argue that the majority of evil with respect to policy and wealth and military, all roads lead back to England. And if you go to England, all roads lead back to Rome. If you go to Rome, let me shut my mouth before I disappear. I'm gonna leave that alone. Um, well, Dr. Carruthers said that the English got scared half to death and went to a think tank to figure out how to keep uh, melanated groups of Africans from revolting all across the world. And they came up with a tactic of installing mulatto class leadership all across the fucking world with agendas. Now, that may not sound like much to y'all, but if you sit and think about it, think of third world leadership, or think of leadership in South America. Think of leadership, I mean, like the leadership class, the head of the military, the head of the governments. You can be in a completely jet black place, but the leaders tend to be kind of looking like me a little bit, right? Dr. Carruthers, for the first time in history, identified that that wasn't a mistake. He said, Dr. Carruthers, basically, if I could dumb down his intellectualism, Dr. Carruthers said that the British came up with a protocol to find people mixed with white, therefore not having allegiance to us. Don't let me get started on that. I'm from one of those light skinned families that'll be opening up a can of wax and ain't nobody ready for. You know what I'm saying? Checking the baby's ear when he's born to see how dark he gonna be, saying, "Ooh, look, he got green eyes," all that type of shit.
And
Well,
if he doesn't, then what?
I never figured that one
You
out.
throw him down the well?
It's something holding the baby's nose to make sure it's gonna be pointy and not pugnacious. People are sick with this shit, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just the one to say it. Being proud of your curly hair and light skin. Are you proud of rape? Because that's where it came from. Alabamians, most of us who are all mixed up and quote unquote pretty, that came from rape, you imbecile. Anyway, I don't want to get triggered. Where was I? Oh, well, Jacob Carruthers, and I'm gonna have to break out Irritate Genie to hit y'all with some real scholarship. But Jacob said that was a really brilliant evil plan by the English. You know what, Black Americans, you know who we need to study? Y'all ready for it? We need to study the English. Because a lot of the problems we're dealing with right now were cooked up in England. Yes. Well, Carruthers said that the English installed mulatto class leadership all across the world as what does Tariq call it? Controlled opposition. Now, that's a very interesting thing for me to read because if you go pick a third world country and then go on Google and type in leadership, like type in whatever the third world, what's the president look like? You can go to Ecuador, which Ecuador is full of jet black people, right? Look at the leadership. He looks like a little kind of like dark white boy, a little Italian looking.
Are
The
you looking at the latest Ecuadorian president? Um, they have a something now where they're trying to get indigenous people to be in leadership positions, and that's brand new.
I love it.
That's brand new. They I think it was in Bolivia. They have a, a indigenous person. Go
There,
ahead, sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm finished. I just wanted to ask you if that was a current one, because I think it's a trend.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna be bold enough to say we started that trend because a lot of people listen to our space that don't reflect on the post, and I've noticed a lot of trends happening. Either I'm paranoid, which I could be, or people are listening in. But Yeah, we identified that wanting. We're the first group to really identify that by accident. I stumbled upon it in one of my favorite books by Jacob. I follow Professor Jacob Carruthers, the late great, because he needs to be praised. Let me brag on
I
Jacob.
noticed. I go ahead. I just wanted to say I noticed this when I was younger, and I was going to all these Caribbean countries and South American countries at one time, and I was like, why are all the leaders very, 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 very light, and it doesn't reflect the people? And then I later found out that a lot of mulattoes are put in place because the father is puppeting them behind the scenes.
Hello.
And that was true for Liberia as well. They are mulatto class. Most of the people were mulattoes, and the white daddy was going to puppet the whole leadership from behind. And that's exactly what happened.
I feel like the Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, God, the Most High, whoever you want to call him, put me on earth to identify that. Because I'm from a family who was raped on the fields of Opelika, Alabama, right outside of Huntsville. And I don't know what we got raped with, but them white genes is strong, baby. Blue eyes and curly hair. I'm like one of the darkest in my family. You know what I'm saying? Um, but that what I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that race mixing is fucking warfare. Tell it, say, put it. I say it in a court of law. Race mixing can be used as warfare. Dr. Chancellor Williams told us. Nobody listened. Um, it's very old. Um, well, it creates division, and what Wani was saying is what we observed with Dr. Jake Carruthers is the English has fully exploited this racial warfare by installing, or sometimes even, you know what I'm saying, raping women to create a leadership class. Y'all, if y'all want to know more about this, I wrote about this in my book. I probably have about 190 copies left. If you go on Our Story Public, if you go to Cash App Our Story Publications, put $25 in there and put your full address, and I will FedEx you a copy of my book. I identified it by fucking accident. I was professing at a historically black college that I love so dear. I don't say their name. Y'all could probably figure it out. The picture's behind my head on my profile picture, but I just don't want to get their name caught up in no drama because I love them. Um, anyway, I feel like the spirit of Marion Barry led me there because Marion was my mentor, and when I was a very young law student, and I kind of stumbled upon his alma mater. I told y'all way too much by saying that, but anyway. And I was walking through the halls. I had a 200-year-old office. It smelled 200 years old. It was gorgeous. And the key was old, and it was overlooking the campus. If you look behind my shoulder, that's my office by the tree that they cut down. But I was walking through the hallway aimlessly one day, just absorbing the wonderfulness of it, and saw a big old picture of Marion Barry smiling at me. And it's like, what? You went here? He was like apparently SGA president or something, and he hung out with Dr. King. And anyway, that was an emotional tirade. But my point of bringing that up is, yes, installing mulatto leadership has been a tactic for a long time of divide and conquer, and we're just now kind of observing it. Now, back to my book. When I went to Ghana for a summer in 2023, I accidentally saw deep into this. How did I see it? Well, we took a damn near full tour of Ghana. We were there most of the summer, and we landed in Accra, and we went north to Togo, and we went on a full fucking safari tour. We were exhausted by the time it was over with. Well, we went to the slave castles towards the end, Cape Coast and Elmina. And anyway, at Elmina, what I learned that had me furious was um, at Elmina, the Portuguese they did something. They would, in the morning, the governor, the Portuguese leader of the slave castle, Elmina, which means the mine in Spanish, um, would pick out the young women he wanted to rape. Now, he raped them in front of everybody. That was intentional. He wanted the men to be disempowered, and he wanted the women to see that the men couldn't save them. Don't we deal with those type of those type of ideologies to this day, like black man versus black woman, like you can't do nothing. Well, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, is that came from the start. Like, well, anyway, when the woman was raped with the intention of making her pregnant, and when she got pregnant, the baby with the mixed race half Portuguese baby was sent on a whole nother ship. Find that in a book other than mine. Whole nother ship sent to the Caribbean and sent to the Americas to be sold at a higher premium. Now, listen real closely, ladies and gentlemen. This mixed race baby had intentions from the coast of fucking Africa to be the leadership class over us. So, what I just said, for those of you who didn't follow me, is on the coast of Africa, on the coast of Ghana, or Gold Coast rather, light skin was intended to be a leadership trader class from birth. Never forget that. Uh, Ani Osaru. Hold on, let me give you permission to speak. I think that says Ani Osaru. What's on your mind? I may be saying it wrong. Ani Osaru.
Oh, my bad. What's going on, brother? I didn't want to stop you in your thought, but
Oh,
I
you
was
good?
comment on what Black said earlier. A lot of the infiltration, we're talking warfare, with the immigrants, with Freemasonry, Prince Hall, which is, the Black Boule side of the Freemasons, came from the Caribbeans. He came from Barbados, if I'm correct, and he became a slave to George Washington, and they wouldn't allow none of the black people in that time to go to lodge. So he started a lodge out of his home, and this is how the Boule formed. Out of Prince Hall Freemasonry. It started as community work, and then it expanded out to the talented tenth, where they selected certain people. And it's interesting you say mulattoes was a English tactic in race breeding, to have certain mulattoes play roles in leadership to basically sway black people in our decisions in the times of warfare. Alexander Hamilton, if you get a good picture of him,
Yep.
he's a mulatto,
Hello.
and very interesting. A lot of the leadership that came over from Europe when the Moors had a government here during the 13 colonies, there were mulatto people. And I just wanted to say that.
I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna let you cook, but you just hit on some shit that's just getting dangerous up in this motherfucker. Because Alexander Hamilton, again, let's look at the warfare of education. If you look at pictures of him, they have him depicted as whiter than George Washington. Bullshit. Alexander Hamilton looked like me. Well, like Anya Saru just said, Alexander Hamilton is a great example to show how how race mixing was weaponized. Because Alexander Hamilton's dad was an elite mixed with a Caribbean, and he was put in a position of power. He was in certain societies that run things. Alexander Hamilton was a Federalist. Um, and this is gonna be dangerous because I'm about to make uh Thomas Jefferson seem like a hero in a lot of ways. I'm not gonna call the fucker a hero, but I'm gonna say Thomas Jefferson's ideology works better. Thomas Jefferson was an anti-federalist. So what I want to identify is this mulatto was against rights and against government power no matter what. Well, apparently Thomas Jefferson had his limits because he said, "Oh hell no, people should not." Of course, that was white people, but the people should have power over the government. So him and Thomas Jefferson bumped heads. But my point is of bringing this up is Alexander Hamilton, El Mulatto, was clicked in to the evil system of world domination, and it's not by mistake. It's a tactic. Remember, the Egyptians never race mixed. That was a no. So earlier on, in the world of Plato and Solon, it's my opinion that Solon, in a way to try to take over the world from the black man, said we need to mix that blood. Solon saw that there was absolute power in the Egyptians' refusal to race mix. It was an outright refusal. Anyway, the black. What's on your mind?
Uh, I was gonna answer that because when you really just study these old books during the time period, a lot of these people are described as melanated. Like we talk a lot of shit
It
about
says the
Thomas.
connection is
Oh,
lost.
does it say my connection's lost?
Can you hear me?
Yes, it says connection is lost now.
Okay, let me let
Reconnecting.
y'all know I have full bars. So that's somebody's fucking with the space. I got full bars. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Because
if it goes down, I'll bring it back
you
up.
sound clear
Go
on
ahead.
my backup,
Go ahead
but
to black. Sorry.
you all right. uh I was gonna say because when you look at when you read a lot of the older books during the time period, a lot of these people are described as melanoid people. When it comes down to Thomas Jefferson, even though we talk a lot of shit about him, like you said, uh, when he was running for president, the smear campaign against him was that he was mixed, and his mama was a mulatto Indian. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? So it and then a lot of people when it come down to black people last names, like most black people have the last names of the founders. So it it gets hard. I feel like it's a reason why they whitewashed a lot of history because when you read about George Washington and his wife, she described as a black woman, you know what I'm saying, a brunette. And during that time, a brunette was brown, a brown person, you know what I'm saying? And they separated the description of her her skin tone and you know what I'm saying, the skin tone, the color of her hair and different parts of her body. So it's like it it get deeps in the weed when we get to break it down real history, and that's why I feel like people are so combative and want us to be anti-American because when you realize and go through the pain of the some people family was forcefully, you know what I'm saying, taken advantage of, and some people, you know what I'm saying, family willingly intermingled just for survival. So I feel like when it comes down to the American context, we have to understand that we are an amalgamation of multiple cultures, and that's what make us the American Negro because that was made in America. So it it get real conflated. So when we add the Caribbeans always been the buffer class. Though some of them was the interpreters for the Indians and was the head of Indian tribes to make decisions.
Yeah, yeah. And Dr. John Henry Clark said something very.
Professor,
Oh,
can
you
you
can't hear me?
talk?
I can
Oh,
hear
No.
you, Professor.
yeah. I was about to
It's
say,
okay.
Okay.
Wani,
I can hear you.
Wani, can you hear me?
I can't
Wow.
hear
Tell
anything.
Wani to
All
come
right.
come down and come right back up.
Should I
Wani, can you
bounce?
please drop down and then come back up? He'll just bring you back up.
I'll wait till she comes back because it's really important what I'm about to say. Where's she at? Okay. Bam. Okay.
Yeah, they messing with the space. They've been messing with all positive black spaces all day. Ever since we made the Fat Joe conversation a main point, and everybody been trying to use it as, you know what I'm saying,
Uh,
uh,
what the black
to
saying is about them messing with our spaces is real. And with Fat Joe mentioning the Black Authority, these people are watching us and they're sitting in think tanks trying to figure out ways to silence us. So I believe everything you're saying. I believe everything Professor says about what they're doing to his spaces as well.
Right. Usually,
But yeah.
usually my thing cuts off when I move around. Um, in my little area, but it's in a I got full bars and I didn't see anything. I believe you, Wani, but I didn't see. This happened the other night when it cut off. But anyway, if it cuts off, I'll bring it right back. But
It's cutting off in different ways than normal.
yeah.
I'll say that. It's not normal.
Yeah, well, how is he? One time, Professor was muted. I can't. We're not allowed. the co-hosts are not allowed to mute the host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, forgive me. I'm eating a salad.
Go for it.
What's really good is Japanese salad. Like, holy shit. I don't know. It's so simple. I don't know what's on it.
Asian salads are the best. They are just delicious.
Some sesame seeds dressing.
Oh, yeah. Like the hibachi salad. Oh, my God.
Some of those seeds, when you release the oils in them, they have a very good flavor.
Mm-hmm. It caught me off guard. But,
Yeah, you don't have to add cheese to a lot of. You don't have to add that many fats to a lot of those salads if you
Hmm.
add the correct ingredients.
mm. Dr. John Henry Clark said that, and I'm paraphrasing him, of course, that the Caribbeans, and Wani is more scholared on this than me, so feel free to jump in, Wani, but the Caribbeans didn't have the same experience that we did. And it reminds me of what my grandmama used to say back in the church. She said, the devil meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. It's so true. The Caribbeans were allowed the illusion of inclusion. The Caribbeans had what do you say, Wani? They had a by proxy leadership. You say it a different type of way.
Some of the things about them that are different, they had absentee ownership,
That's
so
it.
they never came face to face with the slave owner. They had some overseers galloping around. They seem to have had less like day-to-day abuse, threats against their genitals, threats to being lynched. Just think about it, the difference between some incident that happens and the slave owner comes out, well, who did that? And then everybody is subject to be lynched. These incidences happened. The one where that house is haunted, supposedly, it's a plantation that's haunted. Well, it's haunted because this one indoor enslaved woman, she wanted to make herself, like so that they would never send her back out to the field. So she poisoned everybody in the house so that she could nurse them back to health
Wow.
and, be the hero. But in what happened was a lot of people died. A chunk of his family members died, and so they were looking to kill her. And they went out and they were like, if you don't turn her over, I'm killing everybody here. I'm going to kill every slave on this plantation. So they didn't have to put up with these day to day incidences of somebody doing something and then you're blamed for it. You're threatened. Their whole lives were different. Yes, they had harsh conditions, but the women had 4 children and we had 9 children. So there are huge differences. They had the ability to complain about their conditions with the Catholic Church. We didn't. Nobody cared about our conditions. We could not ask the church to give us a new slave owner to work with. They could, and they had methods to get married, and they had easier methods to buy themselves out of being enslaved. So that's basically a summary.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, they had a higher opinion. Dr. John Henry Clark posited that, or identified rather, that Black Americans we were never allowed the illusion of conclusion. Think about it. Black Americans, a lot of us look white, especially back in the day. You know what I'm saying? My granddaddy looked like a white man. But even though we look white, we weren't even allowed the illusion of inclusion. We were an N word. You know what I'm saying? The reason for that, a big part of that reasoning was the Georgia Corporation, um, which is why I kind of look side eyed at Georgia. I live in Georgia now, and I'm just kind of like, man, I know what this is about. The Georgia Corporation was created by a captain, later General John Oglethorpe. There's a college named after this fucker in Buckhead that I know black people left and right that go there. I go to Oglethorpe and I just kind of chuckle under my breath. But Oglethorpe sent immigrants here to keep black people in check. That was the first time it happened. Now the first immigrants were white, but I don't want to get on a long diatribe. I'm gonna get straight to the point. The point is the type of immigrants that were sent to the United States and Australia, Australia got the worst, were degenerates. That's not my words, it's words of academic canon. Another word academic canon uses is debtors, pedophiles, and mentally defective. What does that mean in normal people English? They sent people who were fucking crazy over here to oversee us. They released the prison, they released the mental institutions, and those genes still survive, especially in the South. Well, crazy people, mentally defective people, excuse me, overseeing us, deranged people overseeing us, would not allow us to even drive the fucking school bus. You know what I'm saying? They got sick with it. But the blessing in that is they let us know who we were and let us know who we weren't. Whereas Caribbeans kind of got confused with the whole ability to have title, and that in essence, that's kind of what makes the title today kind of dangerous. Is you have that legacy in the Caribbean of illusion of inclusion. You got jet black Jamaicans walking around thinking they're British, whereas we've never been under the illusion that we were, a part of the system. Most of us, rather. But I digress. True
I
news.
think
Oh, go ahead.
there are, I was just going to say real quick, there are some drastic differences between the way that my family in Philadelphia and Delaware and Ohio felt about race than people in Louisiana. Louisiana and nearby, they had a completely different thing that was similar to the behaviors that you noticed in the Caribbean, unfortunately, with colorism and, having these paper bag clubs and wanting to marry white and having that um, what is some kind of thing where the white man could have a sub family of black woman like you were describing. It's there's a name for it. What is it? A passage or something?
You talking about like
So,
Jefferson?
no, it was like a legal agreement where the black woman was having all of these children and married to the white man and he had to pay for them.
Well, that's in I know it up under Napoleonic Code in Louisiana. It's called Code Noir. Black Code was really what that means in French. And the law made it so if you were a white man and you had a baby with a slave, you had to marry her. And you were legally responsible, financially responsible for them, for the children up until the age of 18, which creates another dynamic in New Orleans, a racial dynamic of elite black, like an elite black class. But I don't know if that's what you're referring to, Code Noir.
No, it's a French term. I'm gonna look it up.
You talking about the miscegenation laws?
No, I'm gonna look it up now.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating history. Now, Code Noir did not hit Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. I live in Georgia now, and as a historian, I can kind of see dynamics playing out. The buffer class of Europeans who came here are still kind of in control in my area of Atlanta, and they're still kind of in control. You can kind of see it if you know what you're looking for. You're like, oh,
I found it.
go ahead.
It's called now I can't say it. Placage. I thought it was Placage, but there's kind of a C in there that doesn't, I don't know how that sounds. Anyway, it's a system in Louisiana and other French and Spanish colonies in North America that matched wealthy white men with free women of color in a quasi marital relationship.
Yeah, and that's under Code Noir. That is Code Noir. Um,
Oh, okay. Now, did that mention anything about them having a white wife as well? You
I
remember anything about that?
I
Because
don't
one of
remember
these
that.
relationships is they can have a white wife and have like a sub family. That's also some,
A concubine,
yeah, a little more.
because that's kind of like part
It
of the
is.
the tenant laws.
It is a concubine, but it's a legal agreement. Um, it's kind of Okay, so one of the things people don't realize is that the royal family, they have these sub families. So, Prince Charles or somebody might have a few children by a maid, and everybody just shuts up. All of a sudden, this maid's child will be a bank president. And you say, where did that guy come from? How did he get that position? And they have the missing father. Um, and so they'll have these sub families. And in fact, when they caught Camilla and Charles talking, some of the overheard conversations were very interesting. Since I know that they do that, she was kind of pushing him like, "Oh, don't you think that maid is cute?" See, they do this.
Yeah.
They they have multiple families and they help those children. Well, this one of these situations was that the white man had a white wife, but then he had this other family, and it was in this relationship called a pl- placage or placage system. Yeah, so just threw that out there.
Well, I love it. I love it because it's all related to the Caribbean issue. It's related to the power structure. It's related to our power structure now being compromised by mulattoes, and and I'm typical. I guess I could. It's fair to say that I'm mulatto as well. But I want to identify for my people this source of attack, and it's very powerful. Look at the greatest revolt in known history, 1804 in Haiti or Haiti, however you say it. Um, Dessalines and uh, uh, Toussaint Louverture. Well, nah, they get credit for it. Actually, Boukman, somebody who's into voodoo magic from the bottom, gathered up the old ladies and the old men of the township and allegedly put a curse on the French. After that, you had the rise of Dessalines and Boukman. Well, Dessalines jet black, Boukman jet black, beat the living shit out the French. I want to hit y'all with some Jacob Carruthers right quick. I want y'all to listen to this. After Dessalines and Toussaint Louverture liberated Haiti from the French, what happened? Mulattoes took that bitch back over and ran back to White Daddy. According to Jacob Carruthers on 108, page 108 of Irritated Genie, he says, quote, after the death of Dessalines, the mulattoes under Pétion led a movement. Let me say that again because I did. Quote, after the death of Dessalines, the mulattoes under Pétion led a movement which resulted in the adoption of a new constitution with the president, Christophe, and legislated dominated by mulattoes, with the latter having a bulk of power. This model of a titular president who was black and elite executive council dominated by mulattoes was a reoccurring pattern during the remainder of the 19th century and extended into the 20th century. You think that shit just happened in Haiti? That shit's happening all across the world. Hell, Kamala Harris was mixed. I'm gonna leave that alone. Go ahead, the black.
So
Oh, go ahead, one.
I'm sorry. So the difference is that in this country 60% of enslaved women were raped. And so there's a huge amount of people that are mulatto, that are half white, and they didn't all go to work inside the house. So it basically everybody was mulatto, and those mulatto people, they went on to have children with people that were not mixed and other white people and other people that were mixed, and that's why we have all the skin tones. They can't separate us like that because we don't become mulatto and then go somewhere else. See, it's a completely different setup. When you speak about the UK, this is why we get all of this talking from these Africans. They don't understand our background.
Right.
Okay, so they have African goes over to the UK, has a child with a white woman, and that mulatto child will stay over in the white part of town and rarely deal with the black part of town. They don't, you hardly ever see any of those people. They will go on to further marry white people. They normally marry white. They are not like us, and their minds are not like us. Um, so this is the setup. The the mulatto person, well, we'll just say the person who with a white mother, black father, or vice versa, will stay over there like Sade, have all white friends and all white band members,
Hmm.
and stay in the white part, go to a white school. They do not go hanging out over with a bunch of Jamaicans. They just don't do that. It's like, and they don't understand the way that we are, because we had these mulatto people, not at this present moment, but we're talking about our mixture is not their mixture. Our mixtures happened in the 1800s. I don't
Right.
have any white people in my family. I have a missing white person that I don't know what they look like, that injected their genetics into the family. Okay? I don't know these people. They're not in the family photos. So it's not like we're getting these injections and then we're trottling off to the white neighborhood. We're still in our neighborhoods where we started from. And that's why we have a completely different structure. And that's why we don't have the same attitude of, oh, I'm half white. I'm going to go stay over with the white people and then marry a white person and then blend myself into a Drake baby. That's why we don't do that. We just have a range of colors based on what happened to us in the 1800s.
Facts. True new. What's on your mind?
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to say appreciate you, Professor, for having the space. Wani, Nikki, thank you so much for having the space. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Jacob Carruthers, man, I'm so happy you said that name. I haven't heard that name in so long. And Irritated Genie and Baba Baruti and all those names. I haven't Walimu Baruti. I haven't studied their work in so long. So definitely because they we know they come from that thing that's called the conscious community. And one little tidbit, a little conspiracy I would say that I have is that if you really notice, um, the internet was birthed around that time. And it's really strange how the internet is all about sharing information. And that was what was happening in those spaces. Information in those networks was being shared the way we share it now. So I love this. I love what you're doing. I love that we meet like this and talk like this. That's why I always come back. I love these. But one thing that the brother said, he said something about those last names. The last name Washington. I got a brother on Instagram. I communicate with. I believe he's from Chicago. Um, he has research that also shows that George Washington was described as a tawny, dark skinned man, and which is strange because I was doing research into genealogy. That's one thing that I do, and for Denzel Washington, because I'm from Pittsburgh, if you all have heard me speak before, and it was about the piano lesson that just came out. So I was doing research into August Wilson and Denzel Washington, and it's a little known fact that George Washington may have ties to Denzel Washington as far as lineage goes. And as you, so yeah, and it came through the whole one of George Washington's brother's grandson had a wife, and then he owned our ancestors as slaves. And one of those women, I guess he took a liking to and actually set her up, and they had a child, and so on and so forth. But one thing about that last name Washington, when you look it up, the last name Washington is 90% black, ninety
Hmm.
percent. And when you look up the last name Washington in Europe, it's not even on the 1,000 most common surnames in England. Straight up. In London, straight up. And even when you look at George Washington's ancestry, when you go back and back and back, at some point the name Washington just appears. It's like there's no like okay, it goes all the way back. At some point, it just appears. And so I wanted to say that, and I wanted to say just about Brother Panic. One thing that he was told me that I was listening to his speaking, his some of his videos. One thing he would say is that a lot of early in hip hop, a lot of the executives were these light skinned HBCU graduate people who didn't know nothing about hip hop for real. And they would say things like, "Oh, you call like Rakim, they call him the God." He's like, "Oh, what do you call him? The God? You call him the God MC?" And I just want to land my plane with this as a question: Is was Nelson Mandela put in as a strategic way to kind of sway that back to this whole dark skinned leadership, but under this still
No,
this mindset
no,
of that?
he comes from a lighter skinned tribe.
Mm,
He's not a mulatto.
Is it he Khoisan?
He looks it. There you have some other subgroups that he could belong to.
Well, I found a scholarship I wanted to hit y'all with from Dr. Carruthers that talks about. It took me a minute to find it. It talks about why how mulattoes were installed into leadership. It's so much I want to tell y'all. It's sometimes hard to articulate what's on my mind into speech, but basically, let me try to sum it down. And um, basically, the tactic to control us pre 1800 was physical, and as everybody in this room knows, the control mechanisms and apparatus turn from physical to mental. That's duh, right? Well, one of the control however you say it, that was forced upon the melanated and black community, I said and black, was the installation of mulatto leadership. According to Dr. Jacob Carruthers, on page 110 of Irritated Genie, a must read if you don't have it, he says, quote, a second effect of the revolutions was a decision by Britain to end the slave trade and eventually dismantle the eventual dismantling of the chattel slave system entirely. Keep in mind, chattel means it basically means physical. Quote, actually, abolition was a larger part of the plan designed to prevent the black takeover of the rest of the West Indies. Y'all heard that? That stop right there. That ideology in 1804 was spreading to the Caribbean. Let's kick these Europeans out and start our own shit. But the British cooked up a plan of installing mulatto leaders to slow it down, control opposition. Furthermore, Carruthers says um, it was a larger plan designed to prevent black takeover of the rest of the West Indies and portions of Central and South America. Britain, the United States, and perhaps other European powers began covertly supporting white Creole revolutions to offset the possibility of a repetition of Haiti. Indeed, in less than 20 years after the black nation gained its independence, all of South America and Mexico became independent under white Creole leadership. And that's what we're looking at right now. Yep, it's a plan. The black, what's on your mind?
Um, you right. It's a plan, and it's very diabolical. I gotta give them their props though, cause they been staying on code for a long time and been, know what I'm saying, putting a whole lot of wrenches in the toolbox to throw us off. But the way we coming about things now, it's the way our elders was trying to before they inserted political correctness and forced us to speak in a more kindly and less blunt sort of way. Like the great Steve Coakley say, the the people who are in control, we must name the names instead of using blanket terms. Because when we use blanket terms, that's when they have, you know what I'm saying, more leverage to so-called label us a hate group or, you know what I'm saying, label us anti-Semitic or xenophobic, and that even though that's just dog whistles and ways to avoid the true conversation and deal with the matter at hand, we must learn how to do the scholarship and make it to the point where it is irrefutable. Like you can't deny the facts because it's right there in your face, and that's what they trying to stop us from doing. That's why they continue to disrupt these spaces. People come in these spaces and try to divert the conversation because when we build and get a cohesive thought process and we get on all on one page throughout the whole nation, is unstoppable because we have done it before. It's not impossible. It's just the internet made it even more easier for us to prove things, back up our elder scholars that was sent out to the fringes and so-called discredited because they wouldn't fall in line with the powers that be. So I feel like it's up to us to stand on the shoulders of the giants before us and make sure we honor them and do what they couldn't do because of all these coons and co-ops that was trying to infiltrate and divert us throughout the years because we're coming close to the promised land. We almost at the mountaintop like Martin Luther King said because it's it's inevitable because at the end of the day, without us, the rest of the world will fall apart. We the ones that go around the world liberating people, and we must remember that we are the standard. And as long as we continue to stand on business, we can't be stopped. And hey, everybody in the room, I love y'all. I hope y'all have a blessed Sunday and continue, you know what I'm saying, to build and come together.
What he was saying was true. Without us, the whole structure would fall apart, but not for the reasons you would think. Um, we have been basically foundational Black Americans have our existence, period, unified Europeans. What you should never forget is before we were in the question, Europeans were viciously fighting each other. Our existence gave Europeans an ability to unify. According to Dr. Marimba Ani, Europeans, and I'm paraphrasing her, but she says Europeans identify themselves off of what they're not, whereas foundational Black Americans, we identify ourselves off what we are. I'm a friend. I'm a I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a co-host. What I am, that's what I'm identifying. Europeans, according to Dr. Marimba, identify themselves off of what they're not. I may be this or maybe that, but I'm not Black. Therefore, there is a need to identify somebody who's the enemy. There's a need for opposition. That need, we feel that need. We have felt that need in the United States of America for 400 and some years. Should we disappear tomorrow, the European leadership class would be forced back to square one to looking at each other, and they would go back to war with each other. So we do, in a strange way, keep it balanced for them, which is not cool for us. Black Truth, what's on your mind?
Salute Professor Allen. Salute Sister Wani, Sister Nikki, everyone else in the room. I want to pose a question to everyone. Have you ever seen these heist movies where there's like a bank and the people who are pulling off the heist have like a shop next door, like a coffee shop or a restaurant or something like that, and they're drilling and they're digging in
Yes.
underground,
Yes.
attempting to get into the bank next door? That's what all these nationalist societies are, not only from the Caribbean, but Africa. That's what they're doing. They're drilling through, they're pretending to be something that they're not. They're pretending to be a coffee shop, just a friendly place where you can stop by and get your cappuccino or whatever you drink. But in reality, they're drilling underground, attempting to get to our gold, and that gold being our energy, our force, our power, our moral capital that we have that no other group has. And we all have to remember that all these other groups have their own political parties. They have presidents, They have armies, navies, they have air force units, they have UN seats, they have embassies operating here on US soil. They have societies, and what they're doing is they while they keep all that stuff to themselves exclusively for them, they're creating these other systems, these other societies, these other institutions that they use specifically for the reason of getting resources for their specific group. Believe me, they know what tangibles are, and that's what they go after. All the scholarships that they have exclusively for them, but then they dip into ours, double dipping. All the grants. I have personal experiences where people have gotten grants and loans and credit cards that I know of who were not of our lineage from Africa specifically, and things that we don't have access to, put simply. So they're using these institutions essentially as front places in order to undermine us and to get resources for their groups. When's the last time you heard these people speaking out for our for our agenda, specifically in the form of reparations, cash payments for FBAs? Never.
Never.
When have you heard them push for an anti-black hate crime bill like they push for the anti-Asian hate crime bill, like they're pushing for all this immigration reform and stuff in order to make people legal, mass amnesty, and giving them the right to vote and all this kind of stuff. They're specifically doing all these things in the interest of their groups, all while trying to siphon off of our power, our energy, our quote unquote spirit that we have. And so that's what I wanted to add. I'll land.
Love it. Appreciate you, brother, as usual. Um,
I wanted to add something real quick. They went and begged Congress for a month, a whole month. Caribbeans begged for a month to celebrate their history, which doesn't exist. They don't have a history here. They're nothing here but leeches that came over here to hang out with us. They have countries to celebrate their culture every day. Why don't you do it there? Why do you need to come here because you saw us with a month? We have things to talk about. We built this country. We have tens of thousands, if not 100,000 by now, hundreds of thousands of patents. Okay? What do you have to talk about? You didn't even create reggae. You can't, nothing to talk about except Bob Marley. Literally, what do you have? I remember they had some sort of Latino day. And do you know what they were talking about? They are also a nothing group of people. They had nothing to talk about. They were talking about Desi Arnaz. Really? Really? Desi Arnaz? That's your claim to fame? Yet another leech that came over here to play his music. Go play it over there where you came from. Make the world go to where you are. And I like I Love Lucy. It's fun. It was a good show. But there were not a lot of them here. Now you can't dump your whole country on us. We're not going to take in your whole country. Go do something where you came from. I don't understand the selfishness of anybody of African descent coming here from a full blown country and demanding to celebrate their culture here. You don't get a month here to celebrate anything. This is our land. I'm not celebrating being a Caribbean. You get a carnival day and sit your feathers down. You're done.
oh yeah. To support what Wani just said, I'm gonna put something in the jumbotron that's about to trigger every last fucking one of you. Look at this shit. Would you please? This was in Memphis when I was there. Now, Juneteenth is one of our only um, holidays to celebrate foundational Black Americans, right? Just look at that flyer, would you please? Memphis Juneteenth, right in the middle of it, they got a Ghana Africa stamp. What does Ghana and Africa have to do with Juneteenth? Somebody educate me, because apparently I have an
Absolutely.
IEP.
It has nothing to do with it
Not a damn
except
thing.
they are leeches that can't stop putting those stupid colors on all of our events. And they can't stop putting an African template on it and trying to make us African so they can pretend that Africans had a direct line over here and we're just Africans over here. They're trying to erase us right in our face.
Right.
And they're being, and it goes right along with white supremacy because white people want to pretend like we're Africans over here and we have no claims on the land. White
Hello.
people want to pretend that they did not rape 60% of our women that were on those
Preach.
plantations. White people want to pretend like black men don't have 40% European haplogroups. White people want to pretend that we were just immigrants that came over here. Oh, a little rough immigration. We didn't roughly immigrate here. We didn't immigrate here at all. Our whole ethno group was created here. We didn't immigrate here in any way, shape, or form. No part of my lineage from Africa has immigrated here. It was a crime against humanity, is what it was. And if I drag somebody from California over to Mexico, are they going to say, "Oh, I just immigrated to Mexico"? A little rough immigration, but no, they're going to call the police. They're
Right.
going to call Interpol. They're not going to accept that they have just immigrated, and I'm not going to accept it from an African professor telling me what happened with my group when you are responsible for what happened with groups and continue to happen with groups. You are responsible. I can't believe that I see Congolese people of all people on earth sitting up talking about why we don't accept them as black. You have a full blown genocide going on in the Congo. You
Preach.
have 40,000 children, little kids, working in cobalt mines. You have other things to worry about rather than how we think of you. Don't worry about us. We don't think of you at all. And stop thinking of us. You don't have anything to do with us. You have no more to do with us than a Chinese person has to do with a Native American. You have nothing to do with us. You're simply part of our some of our lineage. Not everybody, part of some of our lineage. And that's it.
Yep. 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 It's then there's a diabolical reason behind that I'm writing about my next book. It makes perfect sense. But there's a diabolical reason. This ain't just because. It's there's a reason behind it. Let's go to Matt, Black Truth in Savannah. Go ahead, Matt.
Good afternoon. How you guys doing? I know you guys were on up all that last night. I saw that. Thanks for the space, Doctor. I want to cross-reference something with you about what you said about Georgia because it got me thinking. But I want to kind of make that point later. Um, I, I think when we talk about like mulatto and criollo, I think we talk about it in our context a lot. And when I've traveled, I know Wani's well traveled, we can say things and they might mean something completely different. For example, oftentimes when I was in Latin America, particularly Brazil, they considered black people mulatto. And they would always kind of go into the color thing, but they you would kind of basically say most black people were mixed. And I learned that like maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I didn't really accept it until I looked at my own ancestry and I was like, they probably are kind of right. So I think sometimes that when we're talking to the Africans, they might be referring to all of us as mulatto, just as most of the world kind of prefers to any black person of any mix. Does that kind of make sense?
Well,
Eh,
they called us colored, which addresses the fact that we're a mixed race. Just like in South Africa, they call them colored. They called us colored, and we rejected it. We liked black better. So that's what we did. Now we're black.
Yeah, yeah. But even if you look at like the case of Liberia, when the black we basically founded Liberia. They had a resentment toward us, and a lot of it was we had more money than them, and they also looked at our appearance, and they said, "Hey, these are these ruling." They call them Amerigo. I think they call the other group Amerigo Liberians or whatever.
Americo,
Who had,
like, yeah, Americo, Liberia.
yeah, and a lot of that was linked to like us looking different from them, being lighter in complexion. And I think the Africans are not necessarily honest in many ways when they're having conversations with us. They always they lie by omission a lot. Um, and my second point is, I think sometimes the term Creole, my understanding of how they use it in South America, particularly in the Hispanic countries, are the people that were of Spanish descent but that were born in South America. And the Peninsularos were the people who were from the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal. They were of upper class. The Criollos were beneath them. And then you had the mestizos, then you had the mulattoes, you had the blacks, and the Amerindians. And so I think it was during the Napoleonic Wars that all kind of flipped because it weakened Spain and it weakened Portugal. So I don't know if that was necessarily their intent to lose the power base that they had. I think it just if you look at a map of Latin America, particularly the Hispanic countries, they're all divided up right now. They can never unify. That's why they're here, bringing chaos, because they're all broken down into some like familial group or something like that, like the Cornados and Uruguay, or you'll hear a common name in certain Hispanic countries, and you're like, why are there so many common names? Or when I was going to Colombia, me and my buddy would jokingly say, yeah, they have that Colombian nose, and we came to realize that there are certain families who took over certain regions of the Hispanic world, and they dominated, those countries, and they kind of ruled them like little fiefdoms. And that was kind of this was just my observation. Now, I would also ask a real quick, Professor Ala, this question because I've recently retraced my family roots in Georgia, and I've noticed I have a lot of crazy family members from Georgia. Do you think that had a lot to do with like I mean because I never thought about it until you mentioned it. Yeah, Georgia was a penal colony. They sent a lot of crazy MFs down to Georgia. You think that had a lot of impact on the black population as well? Because you see like people like Clarence Thomas come out of Georgia. You see a lot of people, black people, a little bit, little crazy come from there. And you think that being in close proximity to those type of people did that to them? I'll leave it at that.
Yes, insanity is hereditary.
The whole the
I
whole
can't hear
insanity
you,
is
Professor.
hereditary. The whole insanity is hereditary argument is what I was trying to hint around when we talked about the Georgia Corporation. The Georgia Corporation, which encompasses Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, parts of Florida, parts of Louisiana, was dominated by insane people. Yeah. And those genes did not go away. They kept being recycled. So I use that to try to explain some of the horror that Black Americans have dealt with. Even my home church, I was baptized at 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, the church with the little girls. How in the fuck do you wake up one morning and throw dynamite down in a Sunday school? You're insane. And unfortunately, these insane genes are in leadership positions in the American South. So my purpose is to just let Black Americans know what you are dealing with, just so you can kind of identify. Identify is a first part of education. We call it low Bloom's taxonomy. Identify. Then once you identify, you can define. Once you define, you can analyze. Once you analyze, you can judge. Black Truth, then Savannah. Go ahead, Black Truth.
Hello. Hey, I just wanted to mention one thing because I heard someone mention Liberia. There's a bit of history specifically dealing with the flag that you have here in the title of the Jamaicans when it comes to Liberia. I don't know if anyone knows that particular part of the history, but the Maroons of Jamaica were very different than the American Maroons. They were not the same type of Maroons. Originally, the Jamaican Maroons were very, very valiant people. They would save the slaves, they would help them out, and the British eventually decided, hey, we can't deal with these guys. We keep going to war. They know the land better than us. We're going to make an agreement. We're going to form a treaty with these guys. So they formed a treaty. And to make a long story short, after a long time, the Maroons became so dependent on money from the British that they ended up changing from being the slave liberators to being the slave capturers. So they would essentially be the enforcement arm of the British. When slaves would be, or when slaves would break free from the plantations, instead of rescuing them and having them join the Maroons, the Jamaican Maroons, they would capture them and give them back to the British. So what happened was the slaves in Jamaica had a distrust for the Maroons. So there was a disconnect there. And eventually after a long period of time, I'm trying to summarize a lot of history in a short period of time, but eventually these Maroons kept getting into scuffles and kept disagreeing and having spats with the British. So they made an agreement to deport them to, I believe it was Nova Scotia. Then, after a while, they said, "Hey, we're going to use these slave capturers because they have so much experience. We're going to actually use them in Liberia." So they actually used those slave captors, captorers, however you
Hmm.
say that, on the FBAs who moved to Liberia. They actually used those Jamaicans over there. They shipped them. They they were in Nova Scotia. Then they moved them to Liberia and used them essentially to do the same thing that they were doing to their own people in Jamaica. So there's a history of Caribbeans specifically who look like us. They do have certain phenotypes that are more similar to ours. They have our skin complexion or whatever, but they've been used historically to undermine us, and not just here in the US. Many of you have heard the story that brother Tyreek has shared about the land given in Ethiopia. So
Yep.
yeah, there's a lot of bad blood there, um, that they really have to answer for, and they have to come to the table honestly. They can't come with a one-sided, you called us African booty scratchers and that kind of nonsense. None of us are buying that anymore. That's
Nope.
played out. We see them for the tethers that they are, and we see these societies that they form for what they are. They're undermining us specifically, and they're using our power to gain resources for their group. And with that, I'll land.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Black Truth. Savannah.
Hi, Professor Nikki and
Hey,
Wani,
Savannah.
hosting this space. Um, so I personally, where do we even begin? Why do Caribbeans want black nationalist societies in the United States? So, Are you referring to how like the Roland Martins and whatnot? Whenever they're referring to us, and their news pundits, they're always like using like FBA or Friedman or ADOS as like the slurs or whatever.
Well, I think what we're establishing with this space is why do foreigners come to the United States and set up shop here? Why do you build a society here? Why don't you do it in Jamaica? Why don't you do it wherever you're from?
Well, I've
Well,
heard a lot of
because
Caribbeans say that they want to form a black nationalist state. What did you just come from?
right.
You
Mm.
see, that's what I was leading to. This is
Okay.
like a one of these cults that hangs around us. They're always talking about black nationalism, and it's like you guys came from countries with people of African descent. So what do you want? Why are you here trying to form that? Go ahead.
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, look at Kai Cenat. If he ran on being Haitian and what Haitians was about, no one would be even watch him. No one would be listening to him right now. He needs our quote unquote je ne sais quoi in order to do whatever he's doing, in order to be relevant. And they know that. He knows that. Um, but one of the things that I noticed just like being at the university, and we talked about the Black Caucus. Um, I noticed that um, they use the caucus as like a form of like to like shut up, right? We've given you this Black Caucus, we've given you this voice, but with that, they put people who don't have our best intentions in these offices, primarily Caribbeans and people from African descent and descents. And I mean, we've seen it work in their favor time and time again when it comes to the reparation conversations. Um, and or they're married to quote unquote tethers, like the Karen Basses of the world. Um, because she knows that at the end of the day, her children, she's, probably didn't raise her children to be black, right? They probably identify more with their Latino background and heritage. And so I think that's been the biggest issue too with a lot of our brothers and sisters who want to sleep out and marry outside the marriage. Like a lot of your kids hate being quote unquote mixed. They hate being mulatto. There's a lot of self-hating black people who quite primarily will quote unquote, whether it's willingly or unwillingly, work with white supremacy to quote unquote hurt the common man. And I remember talking with this guy, this older man, when I was a student, and he was talking about be careful of the Negroes. You don't, you're not, you I don't know, like just basically, you really don't know who's working against you in the sense of the average millionaire isn't out riding Daimler Benzes and Bentleys, right? A lot of millionaires know how to hide their money. And like you could be living right next to a millionaire or to a person who's making these quote unquote decisions on your behalf. They look just like you, right? Um, and so like be aware of that, right? A lot of our people are been supplanted in our communities for a very long time, excuse me, that we know of. And I don't know if y'all talked about it already, but with the whole Yakub messaging and how quote unquote black man could be the quote unquote father of the races, did y'all talk about they clone Tyrone and how they
Yeah.
kind of threw that in there?
Well, I was thinking of they clone Tyrone with respect to the whole mulatto leadership class.
Right. Because that scientist definitely looked like what I thought was could be if one their interpretation of like a Jewish person. Ooh, my bad. Or a quote unquote mixed, person. Because not all mixed people look the same. Some of them have that kinky curly hair, but it's pale faced, right? Um,
Right.
so I thought that was really interesting
That's
because
what I saw when I watched it. I saw the Jacob Carruthers leadership class, and the leadership class misleading you. So you got these scientists who are,
exactly. So
you know,
you would think that it's just the white people that's against you when it's all actuality the people who look like you working
right.
hand in hand. Sorry.
You cannot, guys. This is where history comes very important to us. You can't betray a whole group of people without having insiders. You can't. It won't happen. Even Egypt or Kemet was taken over by Alexander. I'm not gonna call that fucker great, but taken over by him because he had an insider. He had Cletus Nagra, a black general who knew the languages and knew the people, who the Egyptians probably trusted him. There go a brother. Yeah, you can't do it by yourself. So that's really the key to our dominance is the trader class. You know what I'm saying?
And with no, another thing that I noticed with my student activism is that I'm glad that you mentioned the whole Ghana quote unquote connection that they're trying to force, because I remember there was the student in Wana. You mentioned some spaces ago about how they're not very smart. Like there was this girl who we all thought was like around our age. She come to find out she was like at the time she was all we were when we were freshmen, quote unquote supposedly she was already 23, right? And when we were all graduating, she ended up having to like quote unquote stay on to finish out 3 4 more years, right? And and like we so that obviously make her a lot more older than than what she was. And so with that she knew that she would have to like make and do things to quote unquote create a resume. And one of those things was student government. And she found herself getting upset with me because I wouldn't give her the information to help oust out a black American man. in leadership. And she, because I asked her, I'm like, so what is your reasoning? And her reasoning obviously was false, was faulty, and it was more so she just hated him. And I, became an enemy. I don't care. I'm not going to help you with that, right? But then noticing that whole idea of them trying to like, she got upset because he kept schooling her, right? And he kept calling out her bad activity and her bad behavior within cabinet, not wanting to uphold the principles and laws, this, that, and the third, um, bylaws, right? So, but that's just one of those things where I noticed like that quote unquote divide and conquer, and when they feel intimidated, they feel the need to like disrupt or whatever. But another thing too is the whole Palestinian connection.
Well,
The
the whole
whole Palestinian.
the disruption.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought up disruption. That reminds me of Neely Fuller. And somebody tell me, I get it wrong. What did he say? Interactions with blacks should be. It was like the three T's: trashy, terrorist,
Trashy, tacky, and terroristic.
tacky, and terroristic. He called it, and I don't agree with everything Neely says, but with the interactions between foundational Black Americans, that's the type of attitude you have. If it's tacky at first, if you try to act, and I deal with that in my profession so much. Like I try to have dignity.
Mhm.
I try to. I've tried to have dignity, and for the last year, I've just tried to be anonymous, and it's been the worst year of my profession. Like just trying to be not just try to not make eye contact and go straight to my office has backfired on me in ways I can't even explain.
Ugh.
But yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's the worst. You're not allowed to just be yourself. You have to be a dance monkey. You have to be a social battery for them. But another last point I want to hit on too was just like the Palestinian point and talking about how they want people to spaz out and lose their opportunities and jobs, but yet they're out getting grant money and opportunities, living larger than life, going traveling on the university's dime. And I'm like, you got relatives dying. There's no way that I could be comfortable doing this knowing that my relatives are literally being bombed out. Um,
mm,
and I called them out because they wanted to quote unquote invite people who had a change of heart. And I knew that that was like a bad thing to do, not because maybe they didn't have a change of heart, but just because sometimes people don't know when they're being used, right? Ignorance is bliss. So I just didn't feel comfortable. We learned a lot with the Judas mentality of when a person who has something to lose, we always have to keep them at a grain of, just like the whole with having paper. Why are you talking
mm.
to the police, right? Um, it's not because we don't like you or we don't trust you. It's just the simple fact that you might have an incentive or you might have other ulterior motives, right? Just looking at ulterior motives all around.
Right on. Thank you, Savannah. We'll go to Black Truth, then True New. Go ahead, Black Truth.
Thank you. I wanted to correct one thing that I said earlier. I said Liberia, and I actually meant to say Sierra Leone, Freetown. Now, I put something in the purple pill. I don't know how to put it in the jumbotron or anything, but it's kind of like a watered down Cliff Notes version of what I was describing. I remember listening to a way more comprehensive. Uh, it was almost like an audiobook of the history. But I want to read one thing. Hopefully, you all can hear me when I go to it.
I hear you. I'm looking for what
You,
I'm looking for your thing. I'm trying to put it in the purple. I see it. I'm about to put it in the purple.
the Canadian Encyclopedia,
Got it.
and so this is with them in Nova Scotia when they left. Right here, let's see. Okay, they arrived safely on the 30th of September, 1800, and volunteered to support the government against the 1792 black loyalist settlers who had rebelled. In Freetown, they perpetuated the memory of Jamaica by the creation of Trinali Street. And then it goes into some other things, but they specifically volunteered to join to crush the rebellions when our FBA family over there were we were turning up. That was one of the very small areas that we were given in Freetown. And so those of us who were doing something and, attempting to progress, attempting to do something outside of here in the US, they were undermined by those very same Jamaicans. These are the same types of Jamaicans that are here now in political positions, undermining us, making sure that none of our real points, our real agendas are brought to the forefront in politics. So I just wanted to correct that real quick. Sierra Leone, Freetown.
Love it. And when I was in Ghana, summer 2023, we were driving through Accra, and we were driving through a neighborhood, and everything, the dress, the culture got different all of a sudden. And I was like, man, what's going on? It's just different culture. And one of the members of the one of the citizens of Ghana said, "Oh, these are Liberians," and he was like, there's a civil war a couple years ago in Liberia, and the UN just scooped up thousands of people and said, "Hey, I'm putting you in Ghana." So the reason why I'm saying that is this whole ideology of going to Liberia to start over is bullshit. They treat you they treat you like you don't have any rights in Liberia, man. They just scooped up a whole fucking neighborhood and just threw them in Ghana. You know, where was the UN protecting them? Uh, True. What's on your mind?
Yeah, peace. Thank you for letting me speak again. I just wanted to finish the idea that I had earlier that was going on earlier, plus say some things that you had said. About the Boule class. It's interesting. In Pittsburgh, there was this abolitionist named Lewis Woodson, and he was hit. Both his parents were mixed race, and he was a minister in the AME church. And I just think that one thing about the Boule class is so strange is that a lot of them used to be or would have been, quote unquote, from the bottom if they had not made it to that certain place. Because a lot of his colleagues were these abolitionists, but they were from the South. They weren't from Virginia like he was. So I think that's interesting too, because a lot of them get used thinking that what they're doing is trying to uplift the race as this idea has been passed down to them. But then there's a lot of them who were born into, like we see the character on Django with Samuel Jackson. So a
Steven.
lot of them were descended from them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, and so yeah. So with the Nelson Mandela thing, real quickly with the Nelson Mandela thing, I was saying it's so strange because growing up, I was always taught that that was the right thing to do, with the whole fighting apartheid and all the people going to protest and all of that. And and to see us doing that, to see us putting that energy into that. And then, like, a lot of people don't understand, what the sister said, Castanet, this whole internet psychology thing. A lot of people was born after the fact and aren't privy to some of the information that was out, or some of the main outlets that was there for some of this information. And so it's kind of convoluted now and kind of scattered. And so, Tariq Nasheed, for him to be the person that's doing this work is so important, because in the time where everybody's waking up, he created the platform for all these speakers and teachers to come and put their information for the youth, for the next generation. So, you know what I'm saying? To see, he did a whole documentary on Haiti, and I didn't see no real Haitian effort or thank you or anything from that. You know what I'm saying? And it's you, Sister Wani, like learning your story, you know, I, like that right there is just crazy in itself. So, the last thing I want to just say, this is a healing process that, even if I got Jamaican homies, I got Haitian homies, but this is a healing process that no matter how you feel, it got to be done. It just got to be done, because this healing process is bigger than me, you, all of us. It's everybody. Because uh, I don't know if you all know who Burt Williams is, but he was a very prominent actor in vaudeville, but it was like early vaudeville. And if you look him up, he was very known for perpetuating this idea of the black man. And he was from Trinidad. He was from Trinidad, and we've always had a system of resistance. So a lot of us wasn't with that. A lot of us, a lot of newspapers you see, they didn't like the images that Burt Williams played with. He was from Trinidad. Same thing with this man named Stephen Fetchit. He was Bahamian. Oh no, they both were Bahamian, I believe. Yeah, but I know they're both from the Caribbean. Black people in America, black men in America, and portrayed them very poorly, very, very poorly, to the point where that idea that these white people that we even have of ourselves has trickled down. So this is a healing process beyond with how you feel. You know what I mean? So that's all I want. That's what I wanted to finish. I'm land my plane there.
Oh yeah, good point. Tacky terroristic. Matt, what's on your mind? Or did was it the black? I'm sorry, I skipped the black. Go ahead, the black.
Oh, you good? They could have went after me. I mean, they can go. I can go after them.
Let's keep it in order. Go ahead, the black, and then Matt Nagy.
Uh, but yeah, like the brother said, a lot. Burt Williams, the reason why he got full citizenship in America was because he he went to France with the army in World War I. He was part of the Hellfighters, and Jane Reese Europe. He went to the Caribbean to grab, you know what I'm saying, certain people to bring them over here. If it wasn't for him, you know what I'm saying, a lot of them wouldn't even have a chance to come over here. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, they still got to thank FBA brother from the soil for even opening the door with a little crack to let some of them in during the 1920s and before that. So at the end of the day, we always open a door, leave a door of opportunity to all these people that we so called melanated brothers and sisters, but they never, you know what I'm saying, return the favor.
Yeah. Dr. John Henry Clark said, if you want a friend, look in the mirror. Matt, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to ask, and I want to ask, because Wani travels, she's traveled a lot, way more than anyone here. I want to ask both of you this question. I watched a show a long time ago, and it was making a reference to, Koreans and specifically their relation to Italians because they grew up on the peninsula, the peninsular mindset. Have you guys noticed that the mindset between maybe I consider Black Americans continental blacks, right? We have a North American continent is basically our stomping ground. Have you noticed there's a difference in how I don't know if you met Black Brazilians or Black Colombians, but the continental mindset versus the Black Caribbean mindset. And if you've noticed a difference, because when I was in the Caribbean, I noticed it was a very grabby, very we have to get what we can mindset. And I heard a guy in the he was talking one day in one of your rooms, and he said he went to Nigeria, and he said they were hitting his pockets immediately. I just want to kind of throw that out there and see if you guys have noticed that. Wani in particular, and you, Professor Allah, have you noticed that there's a continental black mentality versus a Caribbean black mentality, and maybe maybe that is divergent from maybe a continental African mentality. And I just want you guys to kind of speak on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead, Wani.
No, you can go, but I'll go after you.
I was just going to quickly say yes. When I went to Ghana just a couple summers, like summer 2023, I you have to get shots, yellow fever, and a couple shots. And I was looking at my wife and I's yellow fever forms when we were leaving the house in Memphis. I was walking out the door looking at them, didn't get them. So when we landed at the Accra International, whatever the airport's called, they were like, we went through all that process, and they're like, okay, yellow fever shots. I was like, oh shit, I left them at home. They were like, okay, well, you're gonna have to get some more shots right here, right now. I was like, I'm not taking a shot in Africa. That's not gonna happen. And anyway, long story short, somebody walked up to me, a military person walked up to me and was just like, give her $100 and we'll forget about it. And that kind of started a process of like finesse. Like, everywhere I went, it was like, Give me money for this, give me money, give me money, 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 money. And I thought that was just the way it was until we went to a place near Togo where white people were at this resort. A bunch, I think they may have been South African, or I couldn't tell if they were Dutch. I don't know, but they were real white, and they didn't get. I noticed they didn't get the same treatment that we got. They treated them like they were something special. You know what I'm saying? So the idea of, I think, I don't want to overgeneralize, but um, Black Americans, I can say from experience, in certain countries in the diaspora, are looked at as a paycheck. We are. Even when I went to Bahamas, it was the same way. It was like, I don't know the root of why it is, but I know that it is. Wani probably has more information on that. Go ahead, Wani.
Um, okay. So what I've noticed is that people on islands are like everything is slow. So if you say, come over here right now, my plumbing, blah, there's a water explosion. They're like, okay, and they don't come. I've noticed this in the Caribbean. I noticed it in Hawaii. I was like, there's a whole bunch of tiny ants that I can't see. And like, it's very nerve wracking to have ants that are like, let's see, 10 times smaller than an ant.
Wow.
Okay. Like, you can't see them. You're like, why? There's like a mass of something on my washcloth. And, or like, you could see it. I have very good sight because I had laser eye surgery, so I could see it. But most people couldn't see it. It's like there's a whole bunch of bugs. They didn't care. They were like, it's the island. It's the island. So uh they don't get urgent about things. And I'm used to things being taken care of when I call, and especially if it's something serious. But with the islands, they, like the Caribbeans, have a uh obsession with the big land. Like they it's like they're fighting over little bits of culture. Like they're all trying to claim the same thing. Like, oh no, we created that. Oh no, we created that. There's that attitude, and we don't do that. We don't have that kind of thing. In fact, we have music genres that we've given away. We have lots of music that we just lose interest in and leave it. But they wouldn't do that. They'll just keep, like, they will fight amongst each other over these music genres and lie out of their teeth. There's this desperation, and they have a desperation and a constant desire to get on these bigger pieces of the land. And there is something in a mentality of someone who's born on a little tiny patch of land. It's a vulnerable place to be. A hurricane can just wipe you out. Where a larger piece of land has more of a secure feeling, I feel, and they all want to be on that larger piece of land, and their lives are focused on going to the big piece of land. They've also uh, deluded themselves into believing that they're actually part of the land. Like they think they're one of the islands off of South Carolina, or one of the islands off of Georgia, or any of our islands. And they're not. You are not. Only if we say you are. You could belong to the UK. You could belong to, uh, uh, you know, the Dutch. You're part of us if we say you're part of us. You can't just say, oh, we're one of your possessions, therefore we're genetically you. No, Candace Owen has nothing to do with us. She's just like a Jamaican, ethnically. Puerto Ricans have nothing to do with us. Doesn't matter if we are owning them. Hawaiians don't have anything to do with us. They're a possession, but they have deluded themselves into believing that they have something to do with this big land, and in fact they don't.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very well said, Wani. Mikhail, good to see you. What's on your mind, brother Mikhail? Can you hear me?
Hey, Mikhail. He might be, you know,
Family,
hey,
King, Queen Wani, the magnificent professor. I see we have the Take No Nonsense Nikki and the Black, Savannah, KD, Black Truth, Queen Sister Asha, the wonderful author, powerful Sister Wilson. Wow. I mean, it's loaded. Just nothing but beauty and enlightenment. I just wanted to speak to uh, the strategy that I've found very effective for dealing with, uh, uh, you know, the melanoids on the continent when it comes to money. When I move around, I always have a trusted uh, team. If you have your driver and you have your security. Sometimes your driver is your security. But what I do is, I mean, I know when they see me, they're coming for the money. There's no question about it, and I understand it. I know this situation, and I understand. So what I generally do is I'll hand uh, my driver or my security money in advance in the lowest denomination, but a stack of it, right? And for example, if I get out the car and they rush me, right, or if if I'm in the back seat and we stop at a light and the people they notice that I am Black American, whatever, I will point to my driver or my security and say he has the money, right? And whether they understand me or not doesn't matter because he will reach into his pocket and show money, and then of course they'll rush him and leave me alone, right? Because that's what I want. I want to be left alone. If we go into a place to shop, specifically, not a market, but let's just say a clothing store or furniture store, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I know because, when they hear my American accent and or look at me, you know, things are going to double, possibly triple, right? I'll tell my guy what I want, give him the money, and leave. You see, you know, that way, or step back. I don't have to deal with it. You understand? And it's his job, right, to make sure that I'm not cheated. Because, okay, you can't play me, first of all. And if I have you out in front handling the money transactions, I'm putting money in your pocket to make sure that they're not taking money out of my pocket. So there's a little bit of a strategy behind it. I just wanted to give the family that just in case you come to the continent. But even then, uh, if you get a feeling that they're plotting against you, then you have to get rid of that driver or get rid of that security and bring in someone else who you trusted and explain to them that you caught the driver or the security teaming up with a tribesman to cheat you. You see, so yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, family. Love you all.
Love it, Mikhail, and I love how he pragmatically identified tactics to deal with it. That's pragmatism. You know, what I'm saying, hey, go ahead and identify the driver, and have a backup plan. That's which is something that foundational Black Americans we need to. And I'm talking to myself more than I'm talking to y'all. We need to have backup plans. We get caught up. We've been trained to get caught.
Did he his sound go
Who,
out?
me? Can y'all hear me? Oh Lord.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Nikki can't hear me.
Nikki, you can't hear.
I can hear him. I can hear him now. It went out for a
Okay.
second, but that must be my headphones.
No, it's all
Sorry.
good, Nikki. I just wonder where they mess with the space. But yeah, we've been trained to act emotionally, especially Black men. But I just really want to praise what Mikhail said. Having a backup plan, knowing where you're going, knowing what's going to happen, knowing potentials, and saying, okay, so they bum rush me, point to the driver, he has the money. You're paying the driver, so put it on him. You know what I'm saying? But I thank you for that. We're gonna go to Savannah. Go ahead, Savannah.
Oh yeah, that having a backup plan is so important, and I think a lot of times people get so caught up in the idealist, um, the unidealistic world of what they think should be, especially my generation, that everybody gets an award type generation. I think that really really hurt my generation. Um, One thing I noticed, which I thought was really really unfair, was how my Puerto Rican counterpart could apply for black scholarships and I couldn't apply for the quote unquote Latino scholarships, right? And I thought that was really interesting. And just like another way of how they steal money from us. Um, but sorry, I don't know why. I was just thinking about that when Mikhail was talking about the money and whatnot. But I think it's really interesting how when he talked about the stacks and how, because I understood what he meant, because their money, the value of money there is not the same as what it's here, right? We only, if you need a dollar, we have a dollar bill, you just give a dollar bill, versus $1 there might be like a stack of a stack of like paper, just
Mhm.
because in some countries it's even worse, and that's because of the IMF and how we've allowed, or how their leadership has allowed IMF to come in and basically disrupt their economies to where, you know, for us, $100 is nothing, but for them, $100 they're eating for some months. Um, but I thought that was really interesting, just like which I would want to be in America too, if that was my setup. It's very hard out there, so I understand why people would have a big heart and want to help, but don't come over here and make it seem like all things is glitter and gold when you're literally doing sanky pankies just to get processed. Or sanky panky is what they call it in Dominican Republic, where they basically will go and try to marry quote unquote white people because they find them like as saviors, right? And I find that really funny because white people are the ones that's disrupting their economies, but yet they see them as saviors because 9 times out of 10 it's the white people doing the missionary work and bringing out the donations. So it's like a weird way how they get like slapped around. So I thought that was really interesting too. And yeah, how they still come on and how they're still on board to still play ball with them. It's crazy. But yeah, thank you.
That's why I don't believe in their um, supposed slavery that they went through. I don't believe in it because if my response to slavery is the way that I feel, and your response is to sing about banana boats and tell us that white people are not bad and that we should trust them, then I don't know what you did in those on those islands, and I don't care anymore. That's for you to figure out. I don't know what their situation is. Are they mentally broken? Did they not have the same experience, which they didn't? Did they have so much absentee ownership that they don't even associate white people with enslaving them? Who knows? And it's not my problem. We have our own deal.
Right, which is the purpose of this whole thing. Is let's focus on us. Like my grandmama used to say, without a college education, grandmama used to say, sweep around your own front door before you sweep around mine. A true new talk to us.
Word. Yo, what Mikhail was saying definitely hit home. It was so interesting and definitely tied into everything you were just saying just now. of having our own exclusive language, because a lot of these cultures are um, distributed based off their language, these language families. And it's like it was almost like what I was hearing what he was saying as you were speaking, Mikhail. It's almost like they, literally. I know in another country they have their own language, but even here, I had an experience of working in Michigan at a health food store. And I was working there for a time being, and I don't know. Some of you may have heard of this thing before. Some of you may have be members of it, but I myself never observed any black members. Um, like becoming aware of the unaware. It's like there's systems at play that we totally are not aware of that these people have amongst each other. So I was made privy. I was given like information on this one called Trade First. Have any of you ever heard of this system, this economic system called Trade First? Um, all of most of the major corporation hotels, football teams is based in Michigan, but all of these football teams, basketball teams, stadiums, resorts, car companies are all in this thing called Trade First. And they also have a lot of independent businesses. And the only business owners I've ever seen in it is white and Latino. And what it is basically like a community exchange system, a CES. Like basically, you buy into it, you get the currency, you get their currency, and you're able to have these experiences, based off of your putting up your business. You're back at the currency is backed by your business inventory. So whatever it is your business is, the people who are in this system can come and use this currency to get things out for their business from your business. So basically a B2B, but it's all of these major companies inside of it. And I was shocked that all of these major companies are in it, and we've never heard of this thing, and I've never heard of it. And from what I've seen, there was no black businesses involved in it.
Right, right. Um, that's there. It is. We need to focus on ourselves. Again, I said this a couple times. What did Dr. Clark say? If you want a friend, look in the mirror. Yep. Look at. And he said if you don't find a friend, he said keep looking in that mirror. Right.
Can I speak on that, Professor?
Go ahead.
Because I mean that's important for you to put a name on that, because yes, I've been a part of companies where it was nothing to get tickets to some of the big teams around here. It was nothing. Or just even just Cleveland Browns, Cavaliers, Indian tickets, just and they're constant raffles, and it's like, how are y'all getting these nosebleed or not these nosebleed seats or box seats or field seats? Like it's nothing. But then they're also, when you look at the different sponsorship events that they're all a part of, it's like they have a list of what's okay to sponsor and what's not okay to sponsor. And it's like they're all just pulling it around their money together. So it's nothing for them to just throw a sponsorship because it's probably aligned to the greater good of what they all want, right? And I think the biggest thing to look at too is um, the donations that a lot of these companies throw, especially around the presidential time, because it lets you know what their quote unquote agenda is, right? Like, oh, okay, why is Nestle donating 500,000? Oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So just like when we're going through our whole political game of like who's doing what, when they say they can't throw money our way, go back at them. Well, you all are doing this. Well, you all are in cahoots with this, and it's we have a paper trail of this. But yeah,
Yep. Origins and intentions. We got to know what we're getting into. All right. Anybody else want to come and speak?
Yeah, I want to say something.
Go ahead, bro.
All right, let me preface myself. You know, I think about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and how black people ourselves, FBA, we really clowned him and we did him dirty because he couldn't speak worth a damn. And public speaking has always been somewhat of a crutch for me, but I do have a very important message for us. And today that message is on how FBAs, it's okay for us to go ahead and take the training wheels off our mentality and our minds and start wishing death upon our enemies.
Hold on, stop right there. This is a
Yes, sir.
non-violence. This is a non. Just warning you. This is a non-violent space. We're just. This is about intellectualism.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. I
I
like
don't.
that.
I don't condone. I don't condone violence.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
let's refrain from wishing people, death upon people. If you don't mind,
Well, can I address that before we put it in the category?
go ahead.
Um, for one, 3 points I want to say about death. Death is just another part of life, so we don't have to put it under the category of violence. You know what I'm saying? Whether you peaceful or whether you violent, we all gonna face death sooner or later. Is that true or not?
It is, but context, brother. I know you're getting philosophical with it, but let's be careful with the
Well,
context.
okay. Well, okay. Okay. Well, I do want to address that though. For one, it keeps when we say death or whatever. I don't necessarily mean. I think you putting violence on it though. I don't necessarily. I
You
mean,
mean
a
like
flower
death to
dies.
industries, to trends,
Oh well,
to
just think about a flower. When a flower dies,
Well.
when a
Let's
flower dies, I mean, is it violence?
let's look at the context, the direct context. You said we need to start wishing death upon our enemies, and
Yes.
that sentence alone sounds like it
Well,
can
okay. I'll think of another word.
it could
Let's say transformation. Let's put it in the context of transformation. When a tree loses its limbs in the wintertime, is it dead? No, it's just transformed. And so, under that context, our enemies, because they're not in their right mind by going against us, it gets them out the paint. You know what I mean? They don't need to be standing in our way. You know what I mean? Like we ultimately have a whole nother higher agenda, which we are approaching just through delineation. We approaching something higher than where we was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Another point I want to add on to that is it releases them from life's pains. When our family members transition, they no longer have to deal with the price of gas. They no longer have to deal with um, you know, having to do a number two when you ain't got no more toilet paper and just hunger pain.
That's how we look at it. When white folks gonna look at it, that's a terroristic
I
threat.
yeah
They
yeah
yeah,
they
I'm
looking
yes,
at
thank
us
I
as
was
a
about to say, bro, this
hate
you
group.
mm-mm.
talking about genocide? You talking
yeah
about
I'd remove
you
them.
explaining
Because he could have
genocide, bro?
easily said industries, trends,
Nah,
ideology.
I
Like,
know what he meant what he said, and that's all good, but that's not our space. Like when you make, there are those out there who just are waiting for us to say some stupid shit like that to get canceled. That's like that. What my grandmom said: don't give people a stick to knock you in the head with. He up here wishing death on people. I tried to explain it to him, and then he said he started wishing death in another way. So hopefully he can find a space where he can express himself, but. I don't condone
That's what I
violence.
was saying earlier, Professor. Like these dudes, these Looney Tunes, they just you know what I'm saying, ready to get at something just cause they got a chip on their shoulder and they don't know how to, know what I'm saying, deal with their regular everyday life. Like they bringing harm towards any type of positive movement, cause they they want us to be labeled, know what I'm saying, as a hate group and that we're inciting violence. So they can shut us down. Like they already shutting down our spaces, know what I'm
That's
saying?
what Ribby
It
was
it, it
doing. Ribby
Right.
was going into each room saying that, it's okay to rape a white woman, it doesn't count, and just
Wow.
trying it. And everybody was cussing him out, like, what the hell's wrong with you?
That
oh
And
my
healing
we
gosh,
process.
can I
blocked him.
also too? Can I mention too how I noticed that they've been quick to put these principles from Caribbean backgrounds who would allow a lot of that, because I've noticed that too, that like when they do that projection, oh, black men are deviant, black men are this, black men are that. That's your men. And then it's like y'all are the ones that are continuously trying to like make it seem like, oh, it's not an issue. Let's just, you guys are, I've noticed that they put these Caribbean mammies in these positions over kids, and they're the ones that's allowing the BS. Like, look at allow it. I don't know. That's another thing to draw on.
I was just gonna say that's where the healing process come in. Like, these people really like we really gotta understand that even if reparations comes tomorrow, there still is a psychological healing process that needs to be underway. And it has to be made into culture. It has to be made into a functioning culture where every moment, everything you put into is a part of that healing process. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, and we get people like that, like that guy, that video that guy saw you on, you shared it, that guy spraying that stuff on the fruit. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that is like, what compels a person to do that, but extreme cognitive dissonance. And we must say, at this time, most of these Caribbean descendants, people who got Caribbean family members, your cognitive dissonance is so deep that you may not even see what we're saying, but we have it has to be said because you don't see it, and it's going to be hard if you choose not to see it, if you fight for the belief that you have and stuff like that, because it's inevitable. you know we
Yeah,
was
and
we were this
I,
way.
I wanted to add a point from Professor Chris Hedges of Substack. Chris said some real powerful shit years ago. He said violence is a language that the system speaks better than you. Like, the system has Navy SEALs and Green Beret. Like these man, like it just really pisses me off when people jump on spaces talking all rah rah. What the fuck you gonna do? You ain't doing nothing to get man. th- That's Chris, according to Chris Hedges, making threats is a gift to the system because the system wants to test out its new batch of Navy SEALs. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, thank you for that. So I won't tolerate people jumping on here, getting all rah rah and talking about anarchy, and that's just foolishness. You know what I'm saying? And it's reckless. You know, and it's not effective. Nope. All right.
I
Anybody
would
else? I
I
see
would have
Mrs.
blocked him, but I don't know his thing.
It was something Joker.
Yeah, I'm tired of that because they're obviously ops. Like, what's the point of getting on the stage and doing all that? You know that everybody's going to sit there and look at you like you're crazy. It's not constructive, so what's the point?
Yeah, it's like yeah, it was offish. I'm like either he was unstable upstairs, or more than likely he was trying to get somebody to agree. Like yeah, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, and then bam, got you. This is a hate group. They're dangerous. You know. Ugh. What are your thoughts, Mississippi?
Yeah, hey everybody. Hey, I wanted to speak to the room and speak to the title. Okay, so it says, why do Caribbeans want black nationalist societies in the U.S.? Um, Personally, I think they want to form a nationalist group in order to prioritize Caribbean issues at the expense of ours.
Hello.
Their primary goal is to exclude and marginalize us and our experiences and challenges, and to ensure Caribbean issues are addressed and represented, and an end goal of diminishing us and our group as a whole. The reason they fear delineation is because it means exclusivity and a focus that's solely on us and our play, rather than a whole diaspora that includes all melanated groups, including them. They want an inclusive framework that brings Caribbean issues to the forefront, but while they undermine ours, it's basically competing victimization, where Caribbeans want to be seen as being more socially and historically oppressed than us in our own country. They want to form a hub and an organization that celebrates Caribbean culture and achievements without any emphasis or inclusion of us in the United States, and they want to prioritize their Caribbean economic empowerment and advancements over nationalistic narratives. They want efforts to be directed towards their entrepreneurship, their education, their personal development, rather than flat blackness movements and efforts. So basically, it's done to displace us further in a country that we built. And that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to land with that.
That was straight to the point, very concise, and backed it up. That's exactly shit. He dropped the mic on that. That's exactly what it is. It's a
Right.
usurp. Go ahead,
Now,
one.
I'm going to say, why doesn't it count? Why does it only count if some Hispanic drags across the border and tap dances in America? Why doesn't the tap dancing count over where they are? Why doesn't them having a business count over in the Caribbean? Why does it only count here? And then they have the audacity to say We have main character syndrome, and we think we're the center of the universe because we are. We are the center of the universe. If you are nothing, absolutely nothing, if you stay on one of those islands, you don't exist. You cease to exist. You are invisible. You are socially invisible, and nobody cares about anything you're talking about. You must come up here, sidle up to us, try to plaster your face across our faces on our TV shows, on our entertainment. Pretend to be us, or you don't exist. Your only existence is coming here to pretend to be us and then trying to pivot and saying that you're Jamaican later. That is the only way you can even exist on this planet. That is how powerful our presence is, that these people cannot exist unless they do what I just said. Drake cannot exist. Nobody cares about him and his Jewish mommy up in Canada. He must drag his tail down here, pretend to have street cred, sidle up next to one of our men, get verified, bona fide, sanctified, fortified. You see, if he doesn't do that, he's a cornball that nobody wants to listen to. Okay? He is a cornball. And now he's a cornball again because he got unmasked.
Good point, Wani. FBA world, what's on your mind?
So man, thank you for having this space. Just a couple of points. So number one, the clown or the suspected op that you kicked out with that foolish she was talking about. I mean, if that person or anybody really has that type of energy, you wouldn't be on the internet broadcasting it. I just
Right.
yeah, I just want to get that one point something out of the way first and foremost. Second, I just want to piggyback what Mississippi had just said that the something that the diaspora and people from the Caribbean something essentially want to come here after we built them a lane and gave them a safe space to operate because simply put, those in the dominant white society, somebody wasn't giving it to them, or even didn't even want them here in the first place until we somebody took the beat, somebody took the fight. I mean, somebody beating in the bloodshed. Somebody to even get them over here and have a safe space and pretty much this is the thanks that we get. Um, I have said this about a couple spaces ago. Foundational Black Americans historically we've been known to taking in and taking care of some of the bastard children of other countries. Give them we built them a lane, give them a safe space, built them up, and
Yeah,
what
I will
they
add that that's that whole slavery mantra. I'm
yeah.
sure Wani would agree. Wani, isn't that what slavery did? Is tell basically at its core tell you don't support yourself, support somebody else.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the African
Yeah.
proverb, the child that don't feel the warmth will burn down the whole entire village to feel it.
No, I was referring to the psychology of slavery, which is something we need to deal with because we've been trained to that we don't get the benefit from our own work, and other groups have been um, exploiting that. And I'm sick and fucking tired of it. And it's one thing for a white supremacist group to try to exploit that. It's still filthy and disgusting. But it's a whole nother thing when a melanated group comes over here, becomes aware of our particular psychological damage and try to exploit it. I feel some type of way about that. But go ahead and land your plane, bro.
And
So
then
yeah,
and
oh sorry,
they don't have the psychological damage. So they have another kind of damage, but they don't have a psychological damage because they. I don't believe in their slavery experience anymore. I just believe they had absentee ownership and they didn't have the same experience.
Yeah, I'll straight identify it in a moment. Claude Anderson had a whole article on it. Slavery in their homelands was totally different. Some people wouldn't even call it slavery, because it was just because in Africa, for instance, African slaves over a period of time were allowed to have leadership positions. They were allowed to marry into the family, so it wasn't really slavery. The European, uh, well, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing has a theory on why the Europeans, her theory of detachment from nature, but the European took slavery to a whole another cruel and unusual level with us that did real psychological damage to us. You know what I'm saying? I was telling one of my colleagues that I've done an analysis of foundational Black American students over the course of my career, and I've noticed that FBA students, I'm to the point now where I meet my FBA students, I tell them, stop apologizing, please stop, 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 stop. Dr. A, I'm sorry that Dr. A, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, just over and over again. And I don't hear any other groups do that. Like the Caucasian groups, the Asian groups, they never apologize. It's just like, well, okay. They'll acknowledge the mistake. But I'm starting to attribute, and I used to do it too. I'm attribute the fact that our children are always apologizing. That comes from slavery. That's like, forgive me for existing. You know what I'm saying? We need confidence builders. We need to coalesce back up on ourselves and start building our confidence. Moreover, the confidence of our children. We do not have time to be helping other groups in our condition. But I digress. Go ahead and land your plane, bro.
So man, oh man, I'll just say, my sentiments are exactly the same as yours. I'm professor is I'm tired of it as well, and and no more that we're going to allow our unique experience to be dictate to be have other people dictate our experiences, and in our story we're taking control of it, and if nobody don't put respect on it, so man, they're getting the business, and they're getting the business. So I just land there.
Internalized. It's like internalized shame and
Yep.
guilt. There's
Doc,
a
doc,
psychologist, a psychiatrist, real quick. There's a psychiatrist named Dr. John L. Bolin, and he's from New York, and he has a center. I don't know if it's still open or not. I think I believe it's in Manhattan, and it's called the Mandala Center. And he got a book called Heart of Soul, and said it was this thing called the black hole. These black holes in our psyche that was left there that creates these psychologies that we saw that brother display. You know.
hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Well, Dr. Amos Wilson, PhD, said something a little different. He said inculcate. It's a powerful word for foundational Black Americans. He said we inculcate ideology. Inculcate is like you take something in and you become it. Like if I said, um, let's see, a good example. Wani, you're a thief. 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 Over time, Wani says, if she inculcates it, she says, well, I might as well steal this lollipop because I'm a thief. You become it. And Dr. Amos Wilson said that about the a lot of the things we've been told in America. Um, James Baldwin said the word nigga is an invention. All these are inventions. It's not us. But according to Amos Wilson, we've started to inculcate these ideologies. Now, what Amos Wilson said after that was very powerful. He said, stop trying to figure out what's wrong with you. How about the people who are calling these names are just pathological, which goes back to my earlier point of the Georgia Corporation. The leadership class of people who came, particularly to the American South, were fucking psychopaths. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. Look up the Georgia Corporation. What did academic Cannon say? Captain Oglethorpe sent mentally defective people. What does mentally defective mean? That means they wasn't all the way upstairs. So our children are inculcating ideas that were born out the head of lunatics. Uh-uh. No, 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 no. Fish and grits. What's on your mind?
It was it was a hand before me, Savannah. But if you let me go first, I'm gonna let her go first.
No, you
Oh,
can,
you can go ahead. I was trying
we
to
can
get new
give new
hands, but go
hands
ahead.
first.
Oh, cool. So thank you. I was just trying to be fair. Thank you guys. Good evening. I know you haven't seen me. I've been hustling. I've been running around hustling and shit. But long story short, I wanted to jump on that CARICOM point, that the Caribbean point. It was their CARICOM does not. CARICOM is specifically for the islands. There's reparations for the islands. Everybody who left the islands will not be getting reparations. That's the reason why the Caribbeans all over the world and BK, and Britain to here, or is always trying to get into something politically, because, like I said, CARICOM doesn't represent them because they don't live on the islands no more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that kind of goes to our point. Is they're in a why are they trying to use our land to support themselves? That's not cool. And it's not about xenophobia. Let's do the inverse of this equation. What if I gathered up, let's say me, Nikki, Wani, the Black Savannah in Mississippi, created an organization to help foundational Black American children, and we moved it to Kingston, Jamaica. What do you think would happen to our organization within the first month? Hey, shut that shit down. It wouldn't even
We're gonna be on
at
fire.
least be shut down, but it could get kind of violent. You know what I'm saying? How dare these Americans over here on my soil?
And they
You
do
know?
it here. Now, I just want to remind you of how strong our minds are, okay? Because we were born into slavery, some of us. And when you're born into something, that's different than experiencing it as an adult or even an older child. The first 5 years, um, you just become acclimated to it. Just like when they rescue those Mormon girls from their abusive family members, and they're like, "I want my dad back. When are you going to let him out of jail?" And the father has, had sex with the 12-year-old daughters, married them. Their brothers are running around having sex with them, but they're born into it. So what we think is rescuing them feels like pain to them, okay? But we were able to um, understand that we needed to be free. We were able to understand that, and we were able to save our minds. We do have some damage, um, but not as much as you would think, considering our position. And we had a lot of help from people outside the whole time, and that helped as well. We had free people of color that fought for us to get out of slavery, along with a handful of, you know, what were they? I always get Quakers and Amish people mixed up. Who was helping us, the Amish or the Quakers? It's the same thing. No, it's not. They're different.
The I think the Quakers were
Quakers.
they had like
No, 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 no. The
they had a
Quakers are. I
superiority
was just be,
complex when it came to when they helped us. I wouldn't really call it help. I would say the Amish were more so because the Amish wasn't really looking for anything in return. Like they weren't like we didn't have to join them. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to convert to be Amish for them to help us.
Right. So, I think we did amazing to become literate. I do know of cases where people were semi literate because imagine this: the slave owner sends the enslaved person to the store and they come back with the wrong groceries because they can't read the list. And the store owner is trying to rip off the buyer. So they had to secretly teach us how to read sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. It wasn't as
no,
clear
no, no, no.
cut.
Wait, let me. I help you with that a little bit of
Hold on, hold on,
Wally.
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Don't interrupt. Let her finish her plane.
No,
Let her land her plane.
he can go.
Okay, go ahead. Then.
Now I just wanted to give you the word. It's functionally illiterate. We was functionally illiterate. Like we wasn't totally
Functionally.
illiterate. We was functionally illiterate. Yes,
Okay.
that's the word you're looking for. Sorry.
Thank you. I have not heard that word before. I think I heard it a long time ago. Functionally illiterate. That's a good word. That's probably what I'm speaking about. So anyway, it wasn't that hard for us to learn because we were already speaking Tutnese. We were already speaking covertly. Some of us were being taught things because we had to do functions that slave owners wanted us to do and we needed to read. So technically, we weren't literate, but we were, we had a little head start on being literate that people may not know about. And like I said, I think we've done very well to have been enslaved from birth and still know that we should be free and still help each other on the outside, the free people of color fighting for us, advocating for us, people like Frederick Douglass and others. And we had our fighters, our warriors, um, who let us know you're not supposed to be in this situation. You know, the Harriet Tubmans of the world, which there's only one really, but a Harriet Tubman spirit to carry us out of that situation. I think we've done very well, and we did get out of there after having deliberately broken families. We formed
Yep.
some very strong family unions. And I don't feel, I know people like to relate being in slavery to the situations that we have with our families now. And I disagree with that. I don't feel that being enslaved is why we have bad family units now. I feel like it's a trend. The way that the country is set up, it breaks up families, the way that the immigrants have come in and torn up neighborhoods. I think we all people in America have shattered families because the way it's set up, it's like, oh, I have a job over in Texas and this sister has a job over here, and my brother went to this college over in this state, and they don't, people aren't together the way they used to be. It's just not the way the country's set up. It doesn't foster families, it doesn't foster neighborhoods. It's got people scattered around. And we're part of the United States of America, so we too do the same thing. We go to colleges not near our parents, we get jobs that aren't near our siblings, and we lose touch with our family members. And we don't have the close families that we used to, and our neighborhoods, more than other people's neighborhoods, have been torn apart. So I don't know what to do about that other than to be aware of it. And families can fight back and say, no, we're going to stay together, even if we have to lose out on a job or a college. I know, the people that I partially went to school with, they're all in the same place that they were. Nobody moved. So there are communities where people just they don't take those jobs, they don't go to those colleges. They stay right there. They live in their mother's house and they don't move and they don't sell the house. So it's possible, but you have to make the choice of whether you want to do it.
Right. I'm glad that Wani brought up that our family units were intentionally destroyed. Because again, this inculcation, according to Dr. Amos Wilson, that we are this because we are this, is not true. We're responding to an environment that was created to destroy us. And like Wani pointed out, that environment, moreover, has failed. It has it affected our family? Yes. But we should be destroyed right now. We shouldn't be in the position we're in America. And in conclusion, I think other groups, unfortunately, of diasporic, melanated, black-looking people, to quote the great Vicky Dillard, take advantage of this. They know our psychology, and they're taking advantage of it, which is not cool. The black, and then fish and grits.
Oh, I'll be quick.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Um, when we were talking about inventors and whatnot. I remember had learning that Dave Chappelle great grandfather was born enslaved, but he became one of the first presidents of an HBCU. One of the downsides was that he did introduce Woodrow Wilson to the community. We were talking about how a lot of the black churches, unfortunately, cultivated that relationship. Anyways, throw that out there. Once enslaved, just miraculously learned how to read and became a president of a HBCU. So thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we're a miracle. Go ahead, Fishing Grits. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not Fishing Grits. The black then Fishing Grits.
I was gonna add to what you said and what one said. Our families were intentionally destroyed because if you look at newspaper clippings there after Reconstruction, we was looking for our family members that was sold to different states. So we was very well connected, and we took initiative to search for our distant family members. And the fact that they took the initiative to do that and actually find them and reconnect, and they didn't have the technology that we have today, it should show and should inspire us to have the same initiative to connect our distant families today. Because whether you like it or not, you know what I'm saying? You got family. You probably got family in each state, and y'all have family. You most likely have land in each state too. Because while we was going towards the west, we was developing this nation, and we were buying land, and that land was stolen or, you know what I'm saying, through eminent domain or destroyed. And it's just, you know what I'm saying, left barren, and white people are making money off of it by lumber or just through water or different resources. So it's a must that we connect through our distant family and find out who he truly is.
Yeah, no cap. Fishing Grits, what's on your mind? Fishing Grits, going.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I love putting out. I love putting things into context, and I'm gonna make it real quick, like 30 seconds. Yeah, I just said something about Reconstruction. Um, if I didn't know or didn't know, mulattoes, the mulatto women, the mulatto girls, were the mulatto women, young ladies, were the unsung heroes of Reconstruction. They moved down to the south in droves to teach our people how to read after during the Reconstruction period. So shout outs, and those are the grandmothers that were half white and shit that everybody, all the black people brag about, or the white people brag about and shit. So yeah, put a little context there. Um, Another one is Harriet Tubman is one of the most famous of all the the Underground Railroad operators. She's just the most famous one. She's not the only one. She's the only one that's spirit. You're right, but she's not like the only one. She's the most famous one and notable one. Is a lot more. It's a lot more. It's just the one they highlight her story, but we need to find out the other ones and highlight their stories also. Um, and last not least, somebody was talking about it was another one. Yeah, during that time, the reason you read about a lot of black and Native Americans always going on these trips when they was moving around the country is that black people were good linguistics. Even though we didn't read or nothing, we were very good linguistics, and we learned like 3, 4 of the colonizer languages because it was like 3, 4 nations over at the time. So we knew Spanish and French and German, and we knew 3, 4 languages and shit. So they took us with them when they were traveling. So, and I went to land on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Good point. This is not this family dynamic was prescribed to us. It's not us. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I enjoyed the space. I learned a lot. Wani, you had any last words?
Night.
All right, guys. See y'all tomorrow. Peace out. Oh, and one more thing, if y'all want a copy of my book, go ahead and use the Cash App, Our Story Publications. Put $25 and put your full address, and I'll send you one. Where we talk more about mulattoes and how in chapter 2 of my book I talk about how the mulatto was created as a weapon on the coast of Africa. With that being said, I enjoy y'all.